Chapter 461. Gang Dalei also felt that it was inconceivable. This little demon is determined to kill us. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken out the ghost prison token. He must have encountered something, so he didn't have the time to care about us. Regarding this, Yu-chan deeply agreed. This is the only explanation. Brother Black Snow, wake up. Qin Zhiyang supported Su Yu up with concern. Seeing Su Yu's expression, which looked as if he had used up too much energy, he immediately injected a tiny bit of spiritual energy into Su Yu. Only then did Su Yu wake up. His expression changed abruptly. Where is the ghost prison envoy? Qin Zhiyang heaved a sigh of relief and laughed at himself. Looks like our luck is better. Maybe that brat met an expert and was scared away. Otherwise, with just the four of us, it would be impossible for us to survive from the hands of the ghost prison envoy. Upon hearing this, Su Yu was flabbergasted. Are we that lucky? Gang Dalei's body was once again enveloped by the light and shadow. He grinned and said, "We are lucky this time. Who would have thought that we would provoke such a ferocious monster for the sake of a transmission array?" Yu-chan looked at Gang Dalei with a pensive look in her eyes. "I don't think we can stay here any longer. God knows if the ghost prison messenger will come back. Let's go check the teleportation array first. I wonder if the battle just now affected the teleportation array." Hearing this, everyone's expression froze and they rushed to the side of the pit. What caused them to heave a sigh of relief was that although this place was messy, because it was located in a deep crater, it was not affected much, so the teleportation formation could naturally be used. Su Yu and the other two looked at Yu-chan at the same time, exchanging glances secretly. Yu-chan, on the other hand, felt a chill in her heart as she made a move to escape. Having personally witnessed the strength of the three of them when they joined forces, Yu-chan did not think that she could contend against them. However, Gang Dalei smiled faintly and said, "Considering that we fought against the ghost prison emissary together, if Miss Yu-chan doesn't care about the grudges between you and your companion, why don't you come with us?" Yu-chan's expression eased up and she said with a bitter smile, "He's already dead, what grudge is there? I am not a person who is unable to distinguish right from wrong. I will let this matter rest. Young Master Black Snow, sheep-slaying sword, can only be blamed for his evil intentions. He deserved to die, and it has nothing to do with you." With such a promise, the group finally felt relieved and stepped onto the teleportation formation to leave. The 7th level of the Divine Pavilion. Qin Xian'er was fleeing in a sorry state, and her face was pale. Beside him was Long Wuxin, who was drenched in blood and had a golden complexion. Her clothes were torn and tattered, revealing a large portion of her snow-white skin. The arrogance in her beautiful eyes was replaced by seriousness and shock. Are those the outer court disciples of the 9 prefectures? This is too scary. Long Wuxin turned her head to look at her back. The illusory ancient box had actually become much dimmer, and there were even some gaps in it. There were several ghastly wounds on her body, especially on her collarbone. There was a wound so deep that the bone could be seen. If it had been any higher, she would have been beheaded on the spot. As the strongest person in the Zhenlong continent, Long Wuxin had actually ended up like this. "Xian'er, it's all thanks to you and the death horn in your hands. Otherwise, we'll be killed by that outer court disciple on the spot." Long Wuxin looked at Xian'er, whose face was pale and covered in dirt. Her gaze became much gentler. Even though she was a cold person, when faced with such a cute girl like Qin Xian'er, she could not help but lovingly wipe the dirt off her shoulders. Qin Xian'er drooped her head, full of grievances. "That person is really bad. We were just passing by, and he chased after us. The people of the Zhenlong continent are the best. We have Brother Su Yu and Brother Black Snow, hee." Qin Xian'er played with a black horn in her hand and giggled. Long Wuxin had a strange expression. "Xian'er, could it be that the Black Snow Devil King is interested in you? I can understand him helping you in the Dragon Abyss, But he even gave you a high-grade divine artifact. This is definitely not an ordinary situation. Qin Xian'er opened her mouth in an exaggerated manner. Ah? Does Brother Black Snow like me? Thinking hard, Qin Xian'er looked at the death horn in her hands. Her lips trembled, as if she was unwilling to part with it. However, she still shook her head with determination. I only want Brother Suyu. If I see Brother Black Snow again, I will return the horn to him. Is that enough? Long Wuxin was silent. Speaking of which, the Black Snow Devil King had left a deep impression on her. She did not know why, but he gave her an unusually mysterious feeling. All right, don't think too much about it. Let's immediately head to the Fairy King's ruins recorded by the Heavenly Law Alliance. It is said that it is a relic that has yet to be excavated. It is suitable for the two of us to enter. There are many geniuses in the Jiuzhou continent here. We must be careful and not be greedy. One relic is enough for us. Hearing this, Xian'er nodded her head obediently. All right, I will listen to Sister Wuxin. Good girl. Long Wuxin rubbed her head affectionately, then brought her to the Fairy King's ruins. On the other side, Bai Qi stood on the peak of a mountain. A scroll flew out from his sleeve. The old man in it was slightly dissatisfied. Why didn't you get rid of the two of them? Hearing this, Bai Qi knelt down in fear and trepidation, revealing his true appearance. It was the Ghost King. Master, I sensed the presence of many geniuses from the 9 states. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, I did not attack them. Hearing this, the old man felt that it was reasonable and did not pursue the matter further. All right, let's continue to look for the next transportation spell. The Ghost King bowed, his gaze looking in the direction of the Fairy King's ruins. In another area, Bai Luo and his group were walking on an extremely peaceful path. The 6 of them were not injured in the slightest. The king is really a godly person to have such a map. As long as we follow this path, we can avoid all the dangerous areas and enter the 8th Divine Pavilion. Yu held a map in her hands, nodding her head. All right, the king's arrangements are naturally flawless. Bai Luo, who was leading the way, had a strange glow in his eyes. In another direction, the people from the 4 great ancient clans were rushing toward a dark forest. The person in the lead was Xingguo. The world spun, and Suyu once again felt the dizziness from the transportation. When he opened his eyes, he realized that he was in an abandoned secret room covered in dust. Suyu's soul was much stronger than theirs. Hence, he was the first to adapt to the dizziness. Looking around, the dust in the secret chamber was at least 3 inches deep. Stepping on it felt like stepping on a thick layer of cotton. It looked like no one had ever successfully used the transportation spell. Hence, no one had ever stepped onto the other end of the transportation spell. Suddenly, Suyu saw a white skeleton in the corner of the wall. The clothes on the skeleton had already turned to ashes in the passage of time. Many parts of the skeleton's body had been eroded by the wind. Without a word, Suyu flashed over. With a wave of his big sleeves, he blew away the dust around the skeleton. It was a broken sword and a badly decayed scripture. Suyu grabbed with his palm, and the 2 items appeared in his palm. The broken sword was rotting, its glow no longer visible. It had completely lost its use. The scripture was releasing a weak spiritual energy, but the words recorded within were so blurry that they were difficult to read. He could only vaguely see the words Demon Prison Dragon Swallowing Technique on the cover. At the same time, Suyu felt an uncomfortable aura from the book. A demonic cultivation technique? Suyu was slightly surprised. There were very few demonic cultivators in the Zhenlong continent, as there were no demonic cultivation technique. It was impossible for Suyu to cultivate demonic technique. Moreover, the book was in tatters. Even if he got his hands on it, he would not be able to read it. Thinking for a moment, Suyu prepared to throw the scripture away. You should keep it, Sir Black Snow. Yu Chan suddenly walked over from behind, looking at Suyu's back with a surprised expression. She knew that none of the three of them would be a match for her in a one-on-one fight. But Su Yu was the first to awaken from the space transportation spell. When she opened her eyes, Su Yu had already taken the lead, looting the treasures. Upon hearing this, Su Yu was surprised. Could it be that such an item has value? Yu Chan smiled slightly and did not hide anything. To tell you the truth, on the last day of the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion, the strong martial artists who are participating in the auction will be conducting a trading event. The item in your hands might be useless trash to you, but it might be a rare treasure to some other people. This has not been the first time something like this has happened at the exchange meet. Hence, it is best to keep all the items you obtain along the way. There might be a surprise at the end. Hearing this, Su Yu's gaze flashed. Exchange meet. He had come to the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion not only to complete Elder Jio's mission, but also to find the materials to cultivate the evil-destroying silver eyes. He had already obtained the undead herb of the netherworld, but the lightning-avoiding silver pearl and the blood of a real dragon were still far away. It was wishful thinking for him to think that he could find them in the vast mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion alone. Hence, an exchange meet like this was a great opportunity for Su Yu. Where can it be opened? Su Yu asked. Yu Chan passed the address to Su Yu. At this moment, Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang rushed over. The two of them were speechless. Brother Black Snow, you are really fast. In reality, they were extremely curious about the skeleton that had appeared. But when they realized that Su Yu had only obtained 2 broken items, their interest diminished. Otherwise, they would have asked for the items to be split equally according to their previous agreement. Su Yu laughed, storing the 2 items into the cosmos mirror. Isn't there a skeleton here? Brother Dalei and Brother Zhiyang, there is no need to be courteous with me. Take it. Hearing this, the 2 of them glared at him angrily. Even Yu Chan could not help but laugh. Even without Su Yu's reminder, the 3 of them had already started to inspect the skeleton. Other than some parts that have not been eroded, Yu Chan said casually, the rest of the place has been eroded. No one would want it even if we sold it to the demonic cultivators who collect human bones. They had inspected all the protruding or cracked walls. They had only managed to tear down the secret room. In the end, they had only obtained 2 broken pieces of porcelain. Let's go. Gang Dalei was a little unlucky, kicking open the door of the secret room. A ray of sunlight entered the room, shining on the skeleton. Its shadow was elongated. Chapter 462. Just as he was wondering if it was an illusion, Su Yu suddenly froze. The skeleton had a total of 12 ribs, but the shadow on the ground only had 11. One of the ribs did not have a shadow. Su Yu felt that something was wrong, but he did not show it, laughing. Since you do not want the bones, I will take them. Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang were suspicious, once again examining the bones. When they confirmed that there were no abnormalities, their suspicions dissipated. As for Yu Chan, she looked at Su Yu with a profound gaze. The group left the secret room. What appeared in front of them was a vast and boundless grassland. The boundless green grassland made one feel carefree and relaxed. A cool breeze blew past the grassland, bringing with it the faint fragrance of the grass. It made one feel refreshed and extremely comfortable. But Su Yu and the group looked at the lush green grassland, creasing their brows at the same time. The grassland is too quiet, Qin Zhiyang said seriously. Su Yu nodded slightly, his soul eyes sweeping across. His pupils could not help but dilate. In his field of vision, there was no soil under the green grassland. Instead, there were tens of thousands of corpses. Some were fresh, some were ancient, and a thick layer covered the entire ground of the grassland. The lush green grass grew on the countless corpses. As such, there was not even a worm in the area. It was dead silent. This should be the infamous corpse grassland. Yu Chan, who had also come out of the secret room, creased her brows. We have really chosen the worst transportation spell. Gang Dalei said in a low voice. Where is the danger in the corpse grassland? Yuchan shook her head. I do not know, because those who entered the corpse grassland are all dead. No one knows where the danger in the corpse grassland lies. But this place is definitely a forbidden land. Suyu flew into the sky, surveying his surroundings. He discovered that the secret room beneath his feet was on top of a pitch-black mountain rock. Looking across the vast grassland, there was only the mountain rock beneath their feet. The rest of the place was a neat, lush grassland. It was as if the secret room they were in was a lonely boat floating on a green sea. Thinking for some time, Suyu took out a stone and threw it onto the lush grassland. Qin Zhiyang and the rest observed carefully. However, when the stone landed on the grassland, there were no changes, nor did it cause any movement. This caused everyone present to feel even more disbelief. Exactly what is so dangerous about the corpse grassland? At that moment, Suyu's pupils contracted slightly. Someone is coming. Looking in the direction of Suyu's gaze, he could vaguely see a flying ship flying across the sky above the grassland. The flying boat was pitch black in color, and there was a huge skull pattern on it. Seeing this scene, Suyu could not help but be stunned. How similar was this to the picture of a pirate ship that he knew of in his previous life. However, this pirate ship was filled with extremely powerful spiritual energy, which supported the entire ship in the air and flew rapidly. Before Gang Dalei and the other two could reveal a hint of joy, Yuchan's expression changed drastically. Not good. It's the soul-seizing palace's cultivators. Soul-seizing palace? Moreover, looking at Yuchan's expression, it seemed that the people from the soul-seizing palace were quite scary. Seeing the blank expressions of Suyu and the other two people, Yuchan said in surprise, "Could it be that you have never heard of the soul-seizing palace? Within the 18 blessed and heavenly lands, have you not heard of the soul-seizing palace's evil reputation?" Yuchan's face was filled with disbelief. Suyu did not reply, but asked instead, "May I ask what kind of existence is the soul-seizing palace?" The soul-seizing palace is one of the top demon cultivators in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. They occupy a blessed and heavenly lands, and their disciples are known for being cruel and overbearing. In the outside world, they might not dare to be too overbearing due to the difference in power between them. However, in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, there is no one to restrain them. If we were to encounter them, we would most likely be in deep trouble. Demon cultivators? Suyu was secretly shocked. He had never fought with a demon cultivator, so he did not know how strong the demon cultivators of the JoJo world were. Using his soul eyes, Suyu scanned the flying ship. He could clearly see the people on the ship. After looking, his expression gradually changed. There are 7 half-gods, and at least 2 of them have abilities that are at the top. Looking at Suyu's group, apart from Yuchan and Gang Dalei, Suyu and Qin Zhiyang were not at the top. Moreover, there were 7 of them. Other than that, there were more than 20 human kings on the ship, and more than 100 heaven masters. With such a lineup, unless Suyu did not care about everyone and used all his trump cards, he might have a chance of victory. But that was under ideal circumstances. If he exposed everything, he would still die. 7 people. Yuchan's expression changed. Not good. I'm afraid we have encountered the main force of the soul-seizing palace. This time around, the soul-seizing palace has sent a total of 2 teams. One of them is an outer sanctum disciple of the soul-seizing palace, acting alone. However, the other team has 7 half-gods and a large number of main forces. Yuchan's expression was pale. However, she quickly added, "However, our luck isn't that bad. If we were to encounter this main force, we might still have a chance of escaping. But if we were to encounter that demon outer sanctum disciple, all 4 of us would die in his hands." Suyu's expression changed slightly. The outer sanctum disciple of the soul-seizing palace was so powerful? The 4 of them had the experience of fighting against a top-notch half-god ghost, but Yu-chan still said such a thing. It could be seen that the so-called outer sanctum disciple was even more frightening than that ghost. Not good. They're coming here. The flying boat suddenly turned around and flew towards them. Leave quickly. Yu-chan let out a low grunt, taking the lead to escape in the opposite direction. Su-yu and the rest of them did not dare delay, turning to escape. Whoosh, 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 in the blink of an eye, the four of them disappeared into the horizon of the boundless grassland like lightning. At that moment, a loud rumbling sound could be heard. The flying ship landed on top of the black rock. With a whoosh, 7 figures descended from the rock. They were the 7 half-gods that Su-yu had seen before. The person in the lead was a youth with crimson hair. His eyes were a strange white color, sending shivers down one's spine. His eyes fixed on Su-yu and the rest of them, his expression ferocious. Humph! To think that someone arrived before us. Could they also know that this is the place where Divine Master 2mo died? The person beside him had a head of white hair, but his eyes were blood-red. We will know once we enter. The group of 7 charged into the secret chamber. What they saw was a mess. The crimson-haired youth's pale eyes emitted a violent glint. Damned thing! Who leaked the news, allowing these people to enter before us? Our soul-seizing palace paid a hefty price to obtain the place where Divine Master 2mo died. For this, in order to enter the corpse grassland, we paid a huge price to purchase this flying ship. The white-haired youth was equally bewildered. He examined the spell, muttering to himself, Senior Brother Schwelling, they might not know that this is the place where Divine Master 2mo died. Look. The crimson-haired youth looked at the transportation spell that had been used, understanding. Quick, chase after them. We might not make it in time. Once Divine Master 2mo's spirit pet recognizes him as its master, we will be in big trouble. The 7 of them turned into shadows and charged out of the secret chamber. They quickly returned to the warship, determined the direction in which Su-yu and the rest of them were, and gave chase. Along the way, Su-yu was confused. Miss Yu-chan, since the corpse grassland is a forbidden area, why would they barge in? Hearing this, Yu-chan sank into deep thought. She said seriously, I do not know. But I think that the person who is plotting this must be extremely powerful. The hearts of the 4 of them sank. They had taken the risk to enter the forbidden area and coincidentally met Su-yu and the rest of them. They would not let the matter rest. As expected, rumbling sounds could be heard from behind them. It was the giant flying ship, chasing after them at a shocking speed. In terms of speed, it was not much weaker than the fairy realm. How could the 4 of them fight against the flying ship? Let's split up and run. Yu-chan clenched her teeth, flying in a different direction. Gang Dalei also clenched his teeth, taking out 3 jade pendants from his robe. Each of us will take one. As long as we drip our blood into the pendants, we will be able to sense each other's location. After we escape, we will regroup using this method. But Gang Dalei changed his tone, saying in a low voice, if anyone is captured, the jade pendant must be destroyed to prevent the enemy from using the jade pendant to find the others. Hearing this, Su-yu and Qin Zhiyang felt that the situation was grave. They nodded their heads fiercely, splitting up and heading in different directions. The 7 people on the warship were not surprised. Senior Schwelling, I will chase after that woman. The white-haired youth licked his lips excitedly. The red-haired youth shook his head. No. This woman is the famous White Lotus Jade Cicada. Her defensive power is not something you can break. Leave her to me. You can take care of the person covered in light. He does not look like an ordinary half-god. Remember to bring 2 more people. As for the remaining half-god and heaven master, you guys can deal with them as you see fit. After saying this, the red-haired youth determined Yu-chan's direction and gave chase quickly. The white-haired youth determined Gang Dalei's direction and immediately set off with 2 half-gods. The other 2 half-gods chased after Qin Zhiyang. The remaining half-god brought along 3 human kings and chased after Suyu. Suyu turned back to look. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the pursuers behind him. Luckily, the powerful half-god had not chased after him. Suyu's gaze flickered and he gradually slowed down. The half-god demonic cultivator chasing after him raised his brows. "Oh? You are prepared to admit defeat so quickly?" A mocking expression appeared on his face. "But it's a pity that I might not allow you to admit defeat." In his eyes, a heaven master like Suyu was being pursued by a half-god and a few human kings. Surrendering was the most likely outcome. Suyu gradually stopped, standing at his original position, quietly waiting for them to catch up. Sweeping his gaze behind him, confirming that they were the only ones chasing after him, Suyu's eyeballs moved slightly. Chapter 463. The human kings sealed off Suyu's path of retreat without batting an eyelid. Suyu looked at the warship, revealing a profound expression. "I will indeed return, but I do not wish to bring you all along." Hearing this, the half-god froze, not understanding Suyu's meaning. "Forget it, capture him and hand him over to Senior Schwelling for interrogation," the half-god ordered with a wave of his hand. How could he dare interrogate Suyu alone when it concerned Divine Master Tu Mo's treasure? To avoid suspicion, it was best to hand him over to Senior Schwelling. The 3 human kings immediately released a black chi that was not weak. It was somewhat similar to ghost chi. But it was different from the sinister ghost energy. This black aura was filled with a tyrannical aura, different from ghost energy. Demonic energy? Something that only demonic cultivators possess? Suyu understood. So this was demonic energy. But he did not know if the Buddhist treasures and lightning, which could restrain ghosts, could also restrain demonic cultivators. After thinking for a moment, Suyu grabbed a golden dagger with a flip of his palm. The demonic energy of the 3 human kings turned into 3 chains, which locked Suyu down at an extremely fast speed. The 3 human kings were not surprised that Suyu was so easily taken care of. A sovereign personage could easily subdue a mere heaven master. If 3 sovereign personages made a move and something went wrong, it would be too strange. The half-god, who was observing from the side, had his suspicions dissipate when he saw how easily Suyu had escaped. Suyu had stopped strangely, but did not immediately surrender. The half-god was naturally suspicious, wondering if this was a trap. Thus, he ordered his subordinates to attack. Although he looked like he was standing at the side, he was actually prepared to act at any time to deal with any sudden situations. With the mission successfully completed, the half-god was completely at ease. "Take him away!" the half-god ordered, taking a step forward. The 3 human kings behind him used the chains to pull Suyu back to the flying warship. But what caused the expressions of the 3 human kings to change was that when they pulled on the chains, they felt as if they were pulling on a giant mountain. Suyu did not move an inch, causing the 3 human kings to stumble, nearly falling to the ground. Such a strange scene caused the 3 human kings to realize that something was amiss. The half-god leading the way felt the commotion behind him, his heart turning cold. But it was already too late. Suyu had a cold smile on his face as he grabbed the 3 chains of demonic energy with one hand and pulled them back. The 3 human kings flew toward Suyu like pieces of paper. Not good. Their expressions changed at the same time. They hurriedly let go of the chains and attacked at the same time. However, Suyu was already prepared for this. A cold mist was emitted from his chest, which then turned into 3 arrows and shot toward the 3 of them. The strength of this cold energy was far from what a half-deity could easily withstand. With a cracking sound, the 3 sovereign personages froze on the spot while they were still in the position of casting their spells. Their bodies flew in Suyu's direction without any hesitation. What awaited them were 3 golden afterimages in the air with the golden scale dagger. They didn't even have time to scream. The 3 frozen human kings were cut in half at the waist and died on the spot. Everything happened so suddenly that the demigod demonic cultivator couldn't even react in time. After being stunned for a while, the demigod came back to his senses. Amidst his shock and anger, his killing intent surged. Fine. Very good. The physical body of a peak sovereign personage. We underestimated you. I was too lazy to attack you, but you didn't know how to cherish the opportunity. Are you prepared to suffer a fate worse than death for killing someone from the demonic path? The demigod's entire body was filled with demonic energy. He used the demonic energy to form a giant demonic hammer in his hands. The demonic hammer emitted a brutal aura that affected a person's intelligence. Facing the demonic hammer, Suyu felt discomfort all over his body. His soul even showed signs of being suppressed. This demonic hammer actually had the effect of intimidating the enemy's mind energy. Luckily, Suyu's soul energy was abnormally strong, and the effects of the demonic hammer were not strong. With a slight circulation of the spirit energy in his body, the mental intimidation of the demonic hammer disappeared. Seeing that Suyu's mind energy did not change much, the demigod was slightly surprised. If Suyu was a human king, it would be understandable that he was not affected by the demonic energy. But his opponent was only a heaven master. Confused, the demigod became even more cautious. The person in front of him seemed different from an average heaven master. Thinking for a moment, he swung the demonic hammer down from the sky. At that moment, a brutal energy that disturbed the tranquility was everywhere, attacking Su-Yu's soul. Luckily, Su-Yu was not greatly affected. Without hesitation, he waved the golden scale dagger and slashed down. Creak, with a light sound, the demonic hammer was broken. This scene shocked the demigod. Even though the demonic hammer he had formed was not as solid as a divine artifact, it should not have been broken by a heaven master. But he did not have time to think. The golden scale dagger had already appeared half a zhang in front of him. The demigod let out a cold laugh. As he retreated, he weaved signs with one hand. Naive. The demonic hammer that had been sliced in half had strangely reformed, becoming a giant, solid demonic hammer that struck Su-Yu's chest at close range. Su-Yu was also surprised that the demonic energy that had been dispersed could still be controlled by its owner. Demonic cultivators were indeed strange. Clang, but the giant hammer did not shatter Su-Yu. Instead, the demonic hammer suffered a huge backlash. With a whimper, it dissipated once again. It was unknown when a pitch-black armor had appeared on Su-Yu's body, but it disappeared in a flash, and was immediately taken back. The demigod did not understand what was happening. Su-Yu had already closed in on him. The golden scale dagger was less than an inch away from his vitals. The demigod's expression finally changed. He let out a cold grunt. "You are still too inexperienced to kill me." As he spoke, he shot out a sharp arrow made of demonic energy from his chest. With a speed faster than the golden scale dagger, it pierced toward Su-Yu's heart. This demonic cultivator had chosen to perish together with him. This was an extremely overbearing battle technique. However, what caused the half-deity's expression to freeze the next moment was that his back was suddenly burning hot. Lowering his head, he saw that his chest had been melted by a terrifyingly high temperature, forming a bloody hole the size of a fist. His heart had also turned to ash. Behind him, a crimson figure appeared like a ghost. It turned out that from the very beginning, Su-Yu had secretly released his clone in order to wait for such an opportunity. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Su-Yu circled the demigod's neck with the golden scale dagger, slicing off his head. This was the death of the demigod. The face of the demigod still had an expression of dissatisfaction. It was obvious that he had never thought that he would die at the hands of a mere heaven master. Su-Yu grabbed the corpse and searched it. Apart from a few small black bottles, there was only a pitch-black hammer. It was probably the divine artifact that had used the hammer of demonic energy. It was a normal middle-grade divine artifact. The corpses of the human kings also contained demonic materials that could only be used by demonic cultivators. Despite his disappointment, Su Yu still kept it. No matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat. After doing this, he turned the 3 corpses to ash. Su Yu looked toward the flying ship in the sky. Rather than calling it a flying ship, it was more like a battleship. Its size was not much smaller than the battleships Su Yu had seen in his previous life. Su Yu's gaze flickered, and he took out a transparent cloak. It was Xian Wuhan's treasure. It had originally fallen into the hands of the shopkeeper, but now it was Su Yu's. After putting on the cloak, Su Yu's figure gradually became transparent, finally turning into nothingness. Even his aura was concealed. On the battleship, the remaining 17 human kings and 100 heaven masters stood on the deck in an orderly manner, in a defensive position. The 7 half-gods were not present, so they had to be careful of the enemy. Right at this moment, there was a sudden puffing sound. A human king expert was concentrating on his guard. However, in the eyes of many people, he suddenly turned into a handful of dust and scattered in the air. Such a strange scene caused everyone's scalp to go numb. Enemy attack! Be on guard! A human king reacted, letting out a loud roar. But he had just finished shouting when his neck suddenly shot up into the sky. Blood spurted out like a fountain from his neck. It's the enemy! He can turn invisible. Get into formation, quick! Another human king's expression changed, but he still gave a command. At that moment, the 100 people, who were in a panic, quickly split into 10 small teams. Each team stood back to back, forming a circle. This way, whoever was attacked, the other 9 could immediately lock onto the target's position and launch an attack. Creak, however, all of a sudden, the 10 people in the middle of the team were suddenly enveloped by an extremely powerful chill, turning them all into ice sculptures. Seeing that, the human king in charge of commanding was terrified, letting out a loud roar. He's there, attack! However, before they could make a move, another team that was close to the ice sculptures was completely turned into ice sculptures. This scene caused the faces of the other team members to turn red, their hearts filled with fear. Run, quick! This is the corpse grassland causing trouble. Someone shouted in fear. They had already been on tenterhooks when they entered the corpse grassland. Now that they had encountered such a strange scene, they were like birds startled by the mere twang of a bough. Now that someone was shouting to escape, the morale of the people crumbled. Don't fall for it! The human king in charge of commanding had been observing his subordinates, not noticing that someone had spoken. It was the enemy hiding in the dark, creating chaos. But the morale of the people had crumbled, and he could no longer command them alone. In the blink of an eye, 70 to 80 heaven masters chose to escape from the ship. Even half of the human kings had escaped. Seeing that, the human king in charge clenched his teeth, choosing to escape as well. But just as he moved, he felt an icy cold object pressed against his neck. Don't move! The human king's heart thumped. Someone had come behind him without him noticing. He didn't dare to move. He could only watch helplessly as everyone on the ship fled, leaving him alone. Whoosh! Su Yu took off his cloak, saying quickly, "How do I operate this warship? Tell me." The human king's forehead was covered in cold sweat, especially when he saw Su Yu's face reflected on the golden dagger pressed against his neck. This person had been chased by a half-god and 2 human kings, yet he had returned alive. This was enough to show how frightening he was. After struggling for a while, the human king said, "If I tell you, will you let me live?" Chapter 464. Hearing this, the other party hesitated for a moment, then brought Su Yu to the bow of the ship. There was a round plate made of crystal, and there was a palm print on the round plate. As long as you drip a drop of blood and place the palm print on it, it will be able to move according to your wishes, be it in terms of acceleration or direction. Hearing this, Su Yu was surprised. It was so magical? He bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood onto the plate. At that moment, an unfamiliar message entered his mind. Divine flying ship, a high-grade divine artifact flying ship. It requires a vital energy crystal to activate, and its speed can reach the level of the fairy realm. High-grade divine artifact. Suyu was delighted. Other than the semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts on him, the highest grade item on him should be this divine flying ship. Using his soul eyes, he realized that at the core of the flying ship, there was a vital energy crystal filled with vital energy, continuously providing energy to the flying ship. With a thought, the warship shrank rapidly. In the end, it shrank from 1,000 zhang to a foot, like a warship model. You can leave now. Suyu waved his hands, allowing the human king to leave. He then enlarged the ship by 30 zhang, took out a jade pendant, and sensed it for a moment before flying off. The human king looked at Suyu's departing figure, his eyes glowing with a fierce light. Humph! Only demonic cultivators rob others. To think that someone would dare rob us. He must be tired of living. All of a sudden, a small stone shot out from the green grassland beneath his feet. If Suyu were here, he would definitely recognize the stone. It was the stone he had tossed onto the grass to test the grass. At that moment, it was eerily ejected from the ground, tens of thousands of miles away. The human king froze. Then, as if he had thought of something, his expression changed. Without another word, he charged up into the sky. As he charged up, the human king subconsciously looked at the place where he had been standing. What caused him to suck in a breath of cold air was that on the grassland, the dark green grassland had condensed into a giant human face that was 1,000 feet tall. Its facial features were clear, as if it had been dyed with green grass. At that moment, the giant pair of glasses revealed a cruel, ferocious smile. The huge mouth suddenly opened, and several long tongues shot out from it. The human king did not even have time to react before he was pulled into the mouth by the long tongues. As the giant mouth closed again, a scream came to an abrupt end, followed by the sound of chewing. After a moment, the giant humanoid face revealed a satisfied look, and it grinned hideously as it looked in the direction in which Suyu had left. The huge face disappeared on the spot, and the grassland regained its lush green color. It was quiet and beautiful, as if the bloody scene had never happened. In the depths of the grassland, Qin Zhiyang's hair was disheveled, and many parts of his body were stained with the color of blood. There was even fresh blood at the corner of his mouth, and he seemed to be in a sorry state. His face was a little weak, and he couldn't fight for long. Opposite him, the two demigods were also in a sorry state. Their faces were ashen, and they confronted Qin Zhiyang with extreme fear. Both of them had a shallow mark on their ring fingers. Senior Brother Wu, this person's curse technique is extremely evil. If we're not careful, the damage we inflict on him will be reflected back to us. Senior Brother Wu's expression was also solemn, but he was very calm. Don't worry, this person's curse technique can only deal with two people at the same time. Let's not fight him head-on, let's wait for the other senior brothers to deal with this person, then we can easily deal with him. Hearing this, Qin Zhiyang was secretly anxious. He was rather weak, and if this stalemate continued, he would most likely be killed on the spot before the other party's reinforcements arrive. I'll listen to Senior Brother Wu. The halfling calmed down when he heard that Senior Brother Wu's words were reasonable. Qin Zhiyang clenched his teeth, turned around and fled. Chase! Senior Martial Brother Wu shouted in a low voice, and the two of them flew up again to intercept him, entangling him tightly. Right at this moment, Senior Brother Wu's eyelids suddenly twitched. A demigod's senses were extremely powerful. He abruptly sensed an obscure aura suddenly approaching. Be careful, Junior Brother. Senior Martial Brother Wu looked around and his eyes narrowed. He grabbed his Junior Martial Brother's shoulder and moved him to the side. Just as he was about to leave, a golden dagger suddenly appeared and almost pierced through the chest of that Junior Brother. Who is it? What kind of ability is sneaking around and launching a sneak attack? If you have the guts, come out. Senior Marshal Brother Wu's expression changed at once, and he gave a cold hum. At this moment, a cold laugh came from the void in front of them. What a joke! The two of you have the ability to fight 2 against 1, but I have no ability to launch a sneak attack? After saying this, Su Yu's figure appeared. Senior Marshal Brother Wu's gaze turned serious. Here. After saying this, he furiously struck out with his palm, and he gave a cold hum. Idiot! That sentence was obviously meant to test Su Yu. He did not expect Su Yu to expose himself so easily. However, just as he struck out with his palm, the junior marshal brother behind him suddenly let out a horrible shriek. His junior marshal brother's chest was pierced by a raging flame, and the heart within his chest was turned into nothingness. After that, a scarlet figure draped in a transparent cloak appeared, taking out an item from the junior marshal brother's chest and retreating to Qin Zhuyang's side hurriedly. As it turned out, when Su Yu revealed himself, he had given the cloak to his clone. After attracting the attention of Senior Marshal Brother Wu and the half-god, he suddenly attacked and killed the junior marshal brother, who had the weakest abilities, on the spot. Seeing this situation, Senior Marshal Brother Wu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, but he rationally turned to escape. Even though that lad was a heaven master, he was extremely strange. Now that he had teamed up with Qin Zhuyang, the one in danger would be him. However, just as he was escaping, he suddenly felt an intense pain in his abdomen. It was Qin Zhuyang who had a tacit understanding with Su Yu, allowing Su Yu's clone to attack his abdomen, which was not considered a vital area. The intense flame that had almost burned through his abdomen was transferred to Senior Marshal Brother Wu's body. Within his abdomen, there were bursts of flames, and he let out an intense cry of pain. However, his pathetic cry stopped abruptly. A golden dagger, which had been prepared for this, circled around his neck, and his head flew into the sky. At the same time, Su Yu raised his hand and grabbing all the items in his body. In an instant, he had killed 2 half-gods. The way Qin Zhuyang looked at Su Yu had completely changed. Previously, he had speculated that Su Yu had the ability to kill normal half-gods, but he did not expect Su Yu to be so powerful. If Su Yu were to kill him, there was a possibility of success. Brother Zhuyang, how are your injuries? Su Yu stepped forward, concerned. Qin Zhuyang laughed self-mockingly. My injuries are nothing. However, if Brother Black Snow had not rushed over, I might have died here today. I admit that I am inferior to Brother Black Snow's abilities. Su Yu laughed. It was because they were careless and underestimated me. Moreover, the main force was with Brother Zhuyang. I could only be considered lucky. Qin Zhuyang said angrily, Don't be humble. Your abilities, in the Zhenlong continent, including the elders, are enough to rank in the top 10. Most importantly, you are only at the level of Heaven Master. In the future, when you become a half-god, apart from the few fairies, you will be the strongest person in the Zhenlong continent. Qin Zhuyang had given Su Yu an extremely strong evaluation. Su Yu laughed, changing the topic. Brother Zhuyang, these items were found on their bodies. We will split them in half. Qin Zhuyang was gratified that Su Yu could still think of sharing the treasures with him. He shook his head and laughed. You can keep them. These people were killed by you. I was saved by you, and I can't thank you enough. How can I take your items? Moreover, I have a family backing me, and I do not lack resources. It is not easy for a wandering martial artist like you to train alone. Keep them for yourself. Do you hear me? Hearing such words of concern, Su Yu secretly praised him. From the moment they had met, Qin Zhuyang had given Su Yu a good impression. If that is the case, I will not stand on ceremony. Casually stuffing the treasures into his robes, Su Yu took out the divine flying ship and tossed it into the air, causing it to become 30 Chinese feet long. Qin Zhuyang froze. What is this? Could this be that warship? Su Yu laughed. What do you think? Hiss, Qin Zhiyang gasped. You actually managed to snatch that warship. How did you do it? Qin Zhiyang could not believe it. Su Yu shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Even the half-gods chased after them. Is it difficult for me to obtain this warship? Hearing such casual words, Qin Zhiyang could not hide the shock in his heart. Su Yu had said it casually, but he understood that even if there was not a single half-god on that warship, there were still over 100 strong martial artists. Even if Gang Dalei wanted to snatch that warship, it would be impossible, much less him. Qin Zhiyang had a higher opinion of Su Yu's abilities. Junior brother, you are really full of treasures. Many treasures, boy, is the most suitable description for you. Qin Zhiyang did not know whether to laugh or cry. Other than the golden scale dagger, Su Yu also had the extremely powerful and mysterious armor, as well as the extraordinary invisibility cloak. Now, he also had a high-grade divine artifact flying ship. With so many treasures on him, he could attack and defend, and he was even prepared to escape. How strong would his fighting abilities be? Many treasures, boy. The veins on Su Yu's forehead throbbed. He still had the ghost-suppressing golden ring, the Cosmos Thunder Sword, the 9 yin-yang formation, and the ghost prison token. If he took out these treasures, how could he be just a many treasures boy? But Su Yu would not easily reveal those items in front of others. Previously, he had no choice but to use the Eternal Stone King armor during the mysterious heavenly battle, drawing the attention of others. If the 9 yin-yang formation and the ghost-suppressing golden ring were to appear again, there would be trouble. Senior brother, seize the time to rest. I will control the flying ship and rush to Brother Dalei immediately. I hope we can make it in time. At another location, Gang Dalei's Tuzhong huge body was revealed. At that moment, his whole body was covered in blood, and many parts of his body were torn open. Opposite him was the powerful half-god, the white-haired, red-eyed young man. His face was a little pale, and his expression was grave. Beside him, there were corpses that had been torn into two. They were the two half-gods who had come with him. Under the situation of 1 against 3, Gang Dalei could still kill 2 of them and confront the white-haired young man. Chapter 465. Gang Dalei was harder to deal with than they had imagined. Now, he was the only one left. Luckily, it was 3 against 1, which had weakened his abilities. Even though he was the only one left, he was confident that he could take his life. The white-haired youth let out a cold laugh, his blood-red eyes releasing a deep, dark red color. Foreign race, he said. The bones of the foreign race are rare treasures to the demon race. To think that we would be able to get such a great bargain. Gang Dalei was panting, his entire body in a weak state. Even his mind was unstable. Suddenly meeting the blood-red eyes, he felt a wave of fatigue and drowsiness. His huge body swayed, looking as if he was about to collapse. The white-haired youth let out a delighted expression, flying forward quickly. He took out a black bone knife from his sleeve. The cold blade was unusually sharp. With a wave of his wrist, the bone knife slashed toward Gang Dalei's neck. But at that moment the white-haired youth had a thought. His body dodged to the side without warning, the bone knife in his hand slashing behind him. Clang, thud, thud, thud. A figure was forced out of the void, taking 3 to 4 steps back. On the other hand, the white-haired youth held the bone knife, easily pushing it aside. He glared at Su Yu, who had appeared, and coldly said, "You want to launch a sneak attack on me with this bit of cultivation level." Suddenly, he felt that the youth in front of him was very familiar. Thinking back, he could not help but be shocked. What happened? They actually let you escape. There had clearly been a half-god chasing after him. Now that Su Yu had appeared, it was obvious that Su Yu had used his concealment technique to successfully escape. Buzz, buzz, suddenly, a thick strand of hair appeared on the white-haired youth's ring finger. This is a curse. Not good. Without hesitation, the white-haired youth shook his finger, breaking the strand of hair. But there were still a few deep scars on his finger. From afar, Qin Zhiyang rushed over quickly. His injuries had stabilized after some recuperation. Standing beside Su Yu, Qin Zhiyang looked at Gang Dalei, letting out a low grunt. "Wake up!" His words contained the aura of a curse, causing people to feel uncomfortable. Gang Dalei, who had fallen into a deep slumber, immediately woke up. Looking at the situation around him, Gang Dalei was pleasantly surprised. "It's great that all of you are fine." Qin Zhiyang laughed awkwardly. "It was Brother Black Snow who arrived in time and saved me. Otherwise, I would have been finished off by those two half-gods." Brother Black Snow? Gang Dalei was shocked. He had thought that it was Qin Zhiyang who had saved Su Yu. In the end, it was Su Yu who had saved him. However, after thinking about it for some time, Gang Dalei understood. Perhaps Qin Zhiyang and the other two people had both sustained heavy injuries, and Su Yu had successfully come out to take advantage of the situation. After all, Qin Zhiyang's battle prowess was not weak. The white-haired youth also had the same thought. He couldn't see anything on Su Yu that could make him fearful. Hence, he guessed that Su Yu must have taken the opportunity to save him. Sensing their misunderstanding, Qin Zhiyang laughed bitterly to himself and did not explain further. "Dalei, let's join forces and get rid of him as soon as possible. Then, we'll leave this place as soon as possible. Apart from this person, there's also a leader called Xueling. He's the most powerful demigod expert here. Dalei and I are both injured and exhausted. If we encounter him, I'm afraid it'll be very dangerous." Hearing this, Gang Dalei and Su Yu naturally did not object. "Humph, what can 3 defeated soldiers do to me?" The white-haired youth let out a cold laugh. His eyes shot out a blood-red glow, enveloping everyone present. Gang Dalei was shocked. "Be careful, don't look at his eyes." Hearing a low grunt, Qin Zhiyang and Su Yu immediately lowered their heads, not meeting the white-haired youth's gaze. However, the white-haired youth let out a mocking smile. "Who told you that you can avoid my gaze if you don't meet mine? What?" Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang's expressions changed. However, it was too late for them to react. From the white-haired youth's eyes, 3 blood-red halos shot out, imprinting themselves on the 3 people's bodies and entering their bodies. Thump! Gang Dalei, who had been hit twice, swayed and fell to the ground. As for Qin Zhiyang, he struggled for a moment, letting out a low roar of dissatisfaction. He also swayed and fell to the ground. This person's cultivation technique was extremely strange. As people of the same cultivation level, he had easily knocked out the other party. The cultivation technique of the demonic path was too overbearing. As such, Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang were at his mercy. Whoosh! The white-haired youth let out a breath, his body trembling slightly. His face was much paler than before. It was obvious that such an overbearing cultivation technique consumed a lot of energy. Finally, however, before the white-haired youth could heave a sigh of relief, he saw a figure standing upright from the corner of his eyes. Not only was he safe and sound, he was even looking at him with a faint smile. You are actually fine." The white-haired youth could not believe it. The 2 half-gods had directly fainted, but the Heaven Master Kid was safe and sound. So it was a soul attack. No wonder they were hit. Su Yu let out a cold smile. The red halos entering his body had also caused him to faint. Luckily, his soul was strong, and he had the divine 9-dragon Cauldron as a shield. As such, he was able to resist the attack easily. "You seem to be different," the white-haired youth said. "It's a pity your cultivation level is too low. If your abilities were stronger, I might have to be wary of you." If Gang Dalei and the person who had cast the spell were awake, he would have been in trouble in his current state. Luckily, he was just a Heaven Master level junior. "I'll send you on your way." The white-haired youth released a bolt of demonic energy without hesitation, turning it into a long sword that pierced toward Su Yu's chest. Creak! A dazzling golden dagger appeared in Su Yu's palm, and with a twirl, it easily dispersed the demonic energy. The white-haired youth was surprised, a strange look flashing in his eyes. The dispersed demonic energy once again formed a long sword, attacking Su Yu from a close distance. But Su Yu seemed to be prepared. Without a word, he raised his hand and slashed downward. The long sword formed by the demonic energy was once again dispersed in the air. You seem to understand the demonic techniques of the soul-seizing palace. The white-haired youth was slightly surprised. How could he know that Su Yu had previously fought with the person who had used the demonic hammer? Hence, Su Yu had taken precautions against such demonic energy. That means I have to do it personally. The white-haired youth took out a purple umbrella from his waist. There were complicated patterns carved on it. Traces of flowing light flickered indefinitely. There was also a powerful spiritual pressure that came rushing over. It felt like a high-grade divine artifact, but it was slightly inferior. This is my purple sun, incredible umbrella. You are lucky to die under this umbrella. The white-haired youth slowly opened the umbrella. A ball of purple light enveloped the white-haired youth at once. Su Yu was on guard, but he realized that the purple light of the purple sun, incredible umbrella only enveloped the white-haired youth. There were no other abnormalities. Right at that moment, the sky above Su Yu's head suddenly turned purple. A large mass of purple clouds slowly descended, enveloping a radius of 1,000 feet around Su Yu. Within the area of the purple light, a ferocious high temperature suddenly rose. The temperature was so high that it was even scarier than the origin. A large patch of grassland quickly withered and turned yellow. It then spontaneously combusted, turning into a sea of fire. Naked. There were tens of thousands of corpses exposed on the ground. They had not melted even after hundreds of years, but under such high temperature, these bones actually began to burn. Very quickly, even the air began to burn. The entire 100 zhang radius was burning. Regardless of whether it was the ground or the sky, everything was filled with purple flames. The terrifying temperature that exceeded the origin melted everything within it. Only the white-haired youth who was holding the purple umbrella was unharmed by the purple light. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. Was this also a demonic treasure? How tyrannical! Within a 100 zhang radius, apart from the white-haired youth himself, everyone and everything else was burned into nothingness. Creak! With a flash of black light, Su Yu's body was covered in a layer of black armor. Under Su Yu's control, the vital energy crystal in the center automatically released waves of vital energy, activating the Eternal Stone King armor. A layer of black light shot out from within the armor, enveloping Su Yu within it. At that moment, the purple flames finally arrived. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The black protective barrier trembled for a moment, but it quickly regained its calm. No matter how ferocious the purple flames were, they could not shake Su Yu in the slightest. His gaze was filled with a layer of killing intent as he looked coldly at the white-haired youth. The white-haired youth's pupils dilated, his expression filled with shock. What armor is that, to actually block the purple sun flames? Su Yu did not reply. He merely took out 9 steel needles expressionlessly, tossing them into the air. At once, the 9 steel needles danced in the air, surrounding the white-haired youth, sealing off all his escape routes. Die! Su Yu spat out coldly, activating the 9 yin-yang formation. Immediately, 9 streaks of steel shot out from the corners, drawing a series of broken lines in the air, weaving into a huge net. Being in the net, any corner would suffer a powerful attack. A whole set of divine artifacts? And they are used in conjunction with the spell? The white-haired youth's expression finally changed. Feeling the terrifying power of the spell, a sliver of fear gradually appearing on his face. Without another word, he kept the purple sun incredible umbrella, turning to charge out of the spell. Creak, but since the spell was activated, he had completely lost his chance to escape. A steel needle pierced through his shoulder armor, the second through his leg, the third through his abdomen, the fourth. The 9 steel needles mercilessly pierced through the white-haired youth's body, not stopping even with his pathetic cries. Stop, stop immediately! The white-haired youth was pierced through 9 places in an instant, his internal injuries severe. But Suyu had no intention of stopping. The steel needles flew out continuously, one of them brushing past his dantian. This caused the white-haired youth's hair to stand. The fear of death suddenly descended upon him. Please stop. I will agree to whatever you want. The white-haired youth tried to escape the spell, but he was trapped in the spell, unable to move. Suddenly, the spell slowed down. Suyu weaved signs with one hand, still sealing off the white-haired youth's surroundings. Erase the refinement mark on that purple sun incredible umbrella, then toss it out. Suyu stated a condition. Chapter 466. Suyu coldly shook his head. I've already lost my life, much less the treasure. Forget it, I'll kill you first to prevent any future troubles. I'll think of a way to get the mark. Seeing Suyu activate the spell again, the white-haired youth's eyelids twitched. Wait. I'll give it to you, as long as you promise not to harm me. Suyu thought for a moment, nodding his head. Sure, but if you dare play any tricks, don't blame me. As long as you keep your promise. I just want to keep my life. The white-haired youth was extremely dissatisfied. His palm gently caressed the purple sun incredible umbrella, and a drop of blood appeared. The purple sun incredible umbrella buzzed, returning to its ownerless state. The white-haired youth raised his hand and tossed it to Suyu. Suyu's gaze flashed, but he did not catch it immediately. Instead, he flicked his finger, sending it flying in another direction, 1,000 zhang away. The white-haired youth's expression changed. What are you doing? What answered him was Suyu's ice-cold eyes. You. Find. Die. He flicked his finger again, sending a bolt of spirit energy into the purple sun incredible umbrella 1,000 zhang away. At that moment, a layer of black liquid flowed out from within the purple sun incredible umbrella. The poison of the liquid was terrifying. As soon as it appeared, the grassland within a radius of 100,000 zhang turned pitch black. The lush grass was quickly corroded into a black, smelly liquid. The ground where the purple sun mystical umbrella was located had been corroded into a 3-foot deep pit. With such a strong poison, if Suyu had touched it with his hand, he would have turned into a puddle of blood on the spot. When he had taken out the mark, he had secretly inserted a drop of the black liquid. He had thought that he had done it without anyone noticing. Little did he know, with the see-through ability of his soul eyes, such a small action could not be hidden from Suyu. The white-haired youth's expression was pale. As he retreated, he loudly begged, "Please give me another chance. I won't do it again. I've already given you a chance." Suyu's expression was as cold as ice. He clenched his fist, activating the 9 yin-yang formation to its limit. The sky was filled with brilliant green afterimages, forming an impenetrable giant net. Creak. The white-haired youth was instantly sliced into pieces of minced meat. With a wave of his hand, a fireball shot out from his finger and burned the corpse into ashes. After which, he used the flames to burn the purple sun incredible umbrella again, burning away all the remaining poison on it. Only then did Suyu raise his hand and grab the purple sun incredible umbrella in his palm. At the same time, Suyu summoned the divine flying ship and placed Gang Dalai and Qin Zhiyang on the flying ship quickly. He then controlled the flying ship without hesitation and prepared to soar into the sky. However, almost at this moment, a terrifying aura shot over from not far away. His aura was so strong that it could even be mentioned in the same breath as the ghost prison envoy. From afar, Suyu could see the head of blood-red hair. Sanguis, the leader of this team. He was carrying an unconscious woman in his hand. It was Yu-chan, who could even contend against the power of the fairy realm. As strong as she was beaten to the point where she didn't even know if she was dead or alive. At this moment, Xueling's hair was standing on end. His eyes were bursting with monstrous killing intent as he flew over madly. Swish! His figure descended quickly, sweeping past the skeleton of the white-haired youth on the ground and the flying ship that Suyu was on. At that moment, his eyes were about to pop out of their socket. "You killed Xueyan." Xueling let out a low growl, his pale eyes looking at Suyu as if he wanted to devour him. Suyu's heart turned cold. The feeling this person gave him was completely different from the demonic cultivators he had seen before. Looking him in the eyes, Suyu had a fearful feeling. It was as if he was facing an extremely frightening living being, and not just a human. Ugh! At this moment, Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang's bodies jerked abruptly. They had awoken from their slumber due to the death of the white-haired youth. They looked at the situation in front of them in confusion. The white-haired youth was dead, but an even more frightening Xueling had appeared. At this moment, he was facing Suyu. The two of them shuddered, turning over and getting up, their expressions unusually grave. "Brother Black Snow, where is that white-haired youth?" Gang Dalei looked around cautiously. That person's secret technique was overbearing and strange, forcefully causing people to fall asleep. It was already extremely dangerous to deal with Xueling. How dangerous would it be if the other party were to hide in the dark? Su Yu's voice was extremely grave, his soul eyes locked onto the other party, not daring to look away for even a moment. He said with a low voice, "He has been killed." "What? He has been killed?" Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang gasped. The only person present who could kill the white-haired youth was undoubtedly Su Yu. Even though they had seen that the white-haired youth had become much weaker after using that secret technique before they fainted, it did not mean that an ordinary person could kill him. Just how much ability was Su Yu hiding? Su Yu's eyes flashed, his palm pressing on the divine flying ship. With a thought, he controlled the divine flying ship to escape. Its speed was pushed to the maximum by Su Yu, and it could compete with the fairy realm. However, what was strange was that the divine flying ship turned one round in the air, then flew back. It was not being controlled. No, it was being controlled by someone else. My blood is in the flying ship as well. Xueling took big steps forward, his voice deep. The words he spoke were like the language of the underworld. Gang Dalei's expression was grave. "Let's go all out. We were able to survive from the hands of the ghost prison envoy. Do you think we will die in the hands of this person?" Su Yu's expression changed again. With a slap of his palm, the divine flying ship shrunk to the size of a foot, and he kept it in the cosmos mirror to prevent the flying ship from being controlled by Xueling attack. Qin Zhiyang used his curse technique, connecting him with Xueling. Feeling that the enemy was unusually strong, Qin Zhiyang clenched his teeth. "I will hold him back. All of you, attack with all your might." Qin Zhiyang weaved signs with one hand, and his other hand took down the hairpin on his head. A vicious expression flashed past his eyes, and he pierced the bottom of his foot. The body of Xueling, who was taking big strides forward, suddenly turned rigid. His right leg seemed to be nailed to the ground, and he was unable to move. Seeing that, Gang Dalei let out a furious roar, letting out an inhuman roar of a flood dragon. His large body was like a small mountain, and he crashed toward Xueling. Su Yu's gaze turned serious as well. He summoned his clone, and the ice and fire origins were formed at the same time. The attacks of the two of them arrived in an instant, bombarding the body of Xueling, who could not move. He could not even use his protective spiritual energy. With his body, how could he withstand the frightening attacks of the two of them? Thump, however, what caused Su Yu's expression to change was that his and Gang Dalei's attacks were like the fists of mortals, bombarding an iron plate. Only his clothes were destroyed, and his body was only left with a layer of skin. A few shallow bloody scars appeared. At that moment Yu Chan, who had suffered an intense shock, woke up from her unconsciousness. When she saw the scene in front of her, she shouted in fear, "Run quickly! His body is already at the level of the fairy realm." Humph! Suddenly, Xue Ling let out a low, cold grunt. That voice was filled with the coldness and tyranny of an absolute power. "It is too late for you to realize it now. Open!" Xue Ling let out a cold grunt, and his body, which had clearly been frozen, shook violently. Pooh! Qin Zhiyang suffered a backlash, opening his mouth to spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. With a cracking sound, his ring finger shattered. As for Gang Dalei and Su Yu, their bodies shook fiercely, and they were sent flying several hundred zhang away like stones. Su Yu was shocked. The body of the fairy realm. Split up and run! Su Yu let out a shout. With the body of the fairy realm, their attacks could not possibly be effective. Moreover, the person that Xue Ling wanted to kill was Su Yu. If they escaped like that, the two of them might have a chance of successfully escaping. Hearing this, the three of them split up once again, shooting toward different directions. However, Xue Ling only let out a cold smile, revealing a row of white teeth. With a flash of his figure, he chased after Qin Zhiyang. A scene that caused everyone to gasp appeared. Qin Zhiyang, who had already escaped 10,000 zhang away, only felt his body become blurry. He could faintly see a red afterimage flash past, and his abdomen suffered a heart-wrenching pain. The terrifying power sent him flying backwards. Gang Dalei, who had sensed the commotion, could not help but look back in shock. "You still have the leisure to look left and right when you are escaping?" Suddenly, a cold grunt came from Gang Dalei's ears. Xue Ling, who had clearly been in front of Qin Zhiyang a moment ago, had actually appeared in front of Gang Dalei, his huge fist coming toward him without any explanation. At that moment, Gang Dalei's body was sent flying back like a cannonball. Thump! Qin Zhiyang and Gang Dalei's bodies flew back at the same time, colliding violently. The place where they collided was the place they had just escaped from. Su Yu, who had turned back to see the scene, gasped. He clearly saw Xue Ling's figure appear in front of Qin Zhiyang and Gang Dalei at the same time, sending them back to their original positions. That was not because Xue Ling was proficient in cloning, but because his speed was too fast. He first appeared in front of Qin Zhiyang, sending him flying with a kick, then quickly arrived in front of Gang Dalei. This inhuman movement technique caused Su Yu to be shocked. Xue Ling let out a mocking smile, coldly looking at Su Yu. "It's your turn." His figure suddenly became blurry, disappearing on the spot. Su Yu's scalp turned numb. He opened his soul eyes, observing with a serious expression. Suddenly, under the penetrative vision of his soul eyes, a distorted air current flew over like a shadow. The soul eyes had always been able to see through everything, but at that moment, he could only see a lump of distorted air current, unable to see the actual body. The terror of Xue Ling's movement technique was beyond imagination. In the blink of an eye, the distorted shadow overtook Su Yu, stopping abruptly in front of him. A giant fist, containing an unimaginable power, struck Su Yu's chest. Thump! The fist struck the Eternal Stone King armor on Su Yu's body, exploding with a loud bang. Su Yu let out a metallic roar, his body flying back like a cannonball. But as he flew back, a dagger fell from Su Yu's sleeves, stabbing into Xue Ling's chest. Xue Ling had not expected Su Yu to be able to see his trajectory clearly. He was not prepared, and was stabbed by the golden dagger. Clang! But the golden scale dagger, a divine artifact that could cut through metal like mud, actually created a spark on Xue Ling's chest. Su Yu clicked his tongue. How terrifying was the abilities of the fairy realm! Xue Ling's murderous intent grew. With a flash of his figure, he caught up to Su Yu, who was flying back. Using his palm as a knife, he slashed toward Su Yu's head. With the physical body of the fairy realm, Su Yu would undoubtedly be killed on the spot. With a flash of his eyes, Su Yu weaved signs with one finger. A terrifying thunderbolt energy was released from the cosmos mirror. Chapter 467. Even though his trump card would be exposed, he had no time to consider it. The enemy before him was strong, and he could only use his trump card to fight back. Otherwise, he might really die here. But at this moment, Su Yu suddenly felt an extremely savage aura coming from the grassland beneath him. There was also a faintly discernible stench of blood assaulting his senses. That savage aura was not human, and it was extremely powerful. It was as if a tiny human was beside the mouth of a hungry wolf. The breath it exhaled sent shivers down one's spine. Su Yu's body stiffened involuntarily. The blood in his body congealed, and it was difficult to circulate. Xue Ling's palm, which was furiously slapping downward, also stopped abruptly. His cold face was suddenly filled with shock. Just a moment ago, Sanguis had been suppressing them in a domineering manner. But now, his face was filled with shock. He even gave up on Su Yu, who was right in front of him, and charged into the sky without hesitation. A strong sense of life and death welled up in his heart. Su Yu's reaction was also extremely fast. He did not even have the time to confirm what was happening beneath him. Without hesitation, he charged into the sky, escaping quickly. At this moment, the expressions of Qin Zhiyang and Gang Dalei, who were tens of thousands of zhang away, changed drastically. As they charged into the sky, they let out terrified cries, "Black snow, escape quickly!" In their eyes, a giant ghost face had appeared within a radius of 1,000 zhang on the grassland where Su Yu and Xue Ling were. The features of the ghost face were clear, and its eyes were filled with a ferocious smile. A terrifying murderous aura was emitted from the ghost face. Such a strange thing caused the two of them to be extremely shocked. Even without their reminder, Su Yu's spirit energy surged, and he used short-distance wings, spreading his wings and flying wildly. At this moment, an air current swept out from beneath his feet. Being swept by the air current, Su Yu felt the aura of death assaulting him. He had only ever felt such an irresistible sense of death from one person before, and that was Shenga. Fairy realm. The monster below was a true fairy realm. Xue Ling was not much better off than Su Yu. His expression was grave, and his expression was extremely calm. The monster below also posed a great threat to him. At this moment, the ghost face suddenly revealed a mocking expression, as if mocking Su Yu and Xue Ling for overestimating themselves. Its huge mouth suddenly split open, and a long tongue that looked like a tree vine extended out from it, sweeping across the sky. With that speed, Su Yu's soul eyes could only see a ball of twisting air current. He could not even see its afterimage. His speed was much faster than Sanguis. Su Yu's expression changed greatly. Seeing that he could not avoid it in time, he activated the Eternal Stone King armor. A layer of black light enveloped Su Yu. But, with a loud bang, the light barrier was ruthlessly struck. What caused Su Yu's expression to change drastically was that the defensive light barrier, which had never been broken before, was now filled with cracks. Although it hadn't been completely broken, it was like a spider's web with cracks all over it. It was extremely terrifying. If the force was a little bit stronger, the rain barrier would have been shattered on the spot. Shocked, Su Yu did not say anything else. He activated the vital energy crystal and released the vital energy within it, activating the Eternal Stone King armor to its strongest state. Soon enough, the Eternal Stone King armor was shrouded in a layer of light that was more than 3 feet thick. This was the first time it had been activated to such a state. The long vine lashed out once again. The black light barrier trembled continuously, but no cracks appeared on it. It had blocked the attack by a hair's breadth. But even though the long vine did not strike Su Yu again, it curled up in the air, wrapping around Su Yu's body and pulling him down forcefully. That frightening power was unimaginably strong. Su Yu had no way of resisting as he was pulled down mercilessly. At that moment, Su Yu felt the world spin around him, and he was swallowed by the giant mouth. At the same time, the long, vine-like tongue extended out once again, sweeping past. Sanguis had already flown 10,000 feet away, escaping far away. But the tree vines spat out a beam of dark yellow light. It was like a chain that was 10,000 feet long. Sanguis's expression changed greatly. Similarly, he was unable to escape. With a furious shout, the chain wrapped around his calf. With a forceful pull, he was also sucked into the vine's stomach. In the blink of an eye, Su Yu and Sanguis were both swallowed by the fairy realm monster. Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang, who saw the scene, had already flown 100,000 feet into the sky in shock. They were carrying the weak and severely injured Yu Chan. The monster looked at the three of them coldly, but it could not do anything. It was as if it could not leave the grassland. 100,000 feet was beyond its attack range. But its eyes were still filled with excitement, and it closed its big mouth abruptly. At that moment, an extremely strong biting force exploded forth. Su Yu was in the darkness, but he could clearly feel 2 rows of extremely sharp objects biting toward him. Crack! The Eternal Stone King armor let out a loud grinding sound. Sparks flew from the Eternal Stone King armor. The black light barrier let out a cracking sound at once. Cracks appeared once again, interweaving into a frightening spider web. Su Yu was shocked. The Eternal Stone King armor was activated to its maximum, but it was almost bitten through. On the other side, Sanguis let out a pathetic groan. Even though his physical body was strong, under such a frightening biting force, his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. But the physical body of the fairy realm was ridiculously strong. Even though the skin and flesh of his torso were torn apart by the biting force, he was unable to completely bite through it. The giant ghostly face let out a ferocious sneer. A hint of pain could be seen on its face. It was obvious that it did not expect the thing it had eaten to be so hard. Its face was filled with anger, and it suddenly opened its mouth to let out a roar. But before Su Yu and Sanguis could escape from its mouth, it suddenly took a deep breath. Under the great pressure, the breath was compressed into a frightening air current, engulfing Su Yu and Sanguis. It wanted to swallow them into its stomach. Su Yu's expression changed. He took out the golden scale dagger and stabbed it into the monster's flesh. He held onto the golden scale dagger tightly, unwilling to let go. Sanguis let out a low grunt, his hands forming claws, digging into the monster's flesh and holding it tightly. The giant monster's face suddenly revealed a pained expression, but it was more of an angry one. The monster let out a furious roar, its mouth once again forming a crack. But this time, it was not swallowing air. Instead, it was swallowing the nearby grassland. The grassland within a 1,000-mile radius collapsed abruptly. With the giant monster's mouth as the center, it formed a whirlpool that looked like a stream of water pouring into its mouth. Su Yu, who was standing up once again, could not help but change his expression when he saw this scene. How could a human body defend against that mud-like torrent? Even Sanguis, who had the physical body of the fairy realm, had a drastic change of expression. Without hesitation, he ran toward the monster's stomach. Rumble! The mountain-like scene caused Su Yu's scalp to turn numb. He took out the golden scale dagger and jumped down as well. It was unknown what the true form of the monster was, but its throat was extremely deep. Su Yu fell from the sky for a long time, but he still could not find the bottom. After falling for half a cup of tea's time, Su Yu's soul eyes finally found the bottom. At this moment, the earth and gravel above his head came crashing down. With such a weight, Su Yu would definitely be crushed into a meat patty. With a glint in his eyes, Su Yu glided in the air toward the wall. He stabbed the golden scale dagger into the wall, his body sticking tightly to the surface of the wall. The endless gravel and soil seemed to be pouring down, brushing past Su Yu's body. The light barrier of the Eternal Stone King armor on Su Yu's body flickered continuously, looking as though it was about to be destroyed. Luckily, the horrifying gravel came quickly and left quickly as well. Whoosh, a large number of gravel fell to the bottom, letting out a violent splashing sound. At once, a shocking stench filled the air. There was also a strong corrosive acid that swept toward him. One of the droplets landed on Su Yu's light barrier. With a creak, a hole the size of a needle's eye appeared on the light barrier. Su Yu was shocked. What a strong corrosive acid! Having recovered from the shock, Su Yu raised his head to observe his surroundings. This place was not dark, and he could faintly see his surroundings. First was the top of his head. Since he had fallen from above, he could consider going back if he wanted to get out. But upon closer inspection, he realized that there was a layer of blood-red light barrier 100 zhang above their heads. When he had jumped down, he had not felt the existence of the light barrier. But now that he looked up, he discovered the blood-red light barrier. Su Yu flicked his finger and a bolt of spirit energy bombarded the light screen. A shocking scene ensued. The spirit energy that was shot out was reflected back at twice the speed. Su Yu's heart turned cold, hurriedly dodging to the side. Thump! A bloody hole appeared on the wall of flesh. What a strong rebound! This light barrier meant that whatever was swallowed into the stomach of the monster would not be able to return. Su Yu's heart sank. He was afraid that he was trapped in the strange object. With a flash of his eyes, Su Yu immediately surveyed his surroundings. To his surprise, he realized that the walls of flesh were like a sieve, with holes of all sizes. The smallest hole could fit a person, while the largest was 30 zhang wide. Just as Su Yu was curious and was about to use his soul eyes to size it up, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. It was as if there was a knife at his back. Without thinking, Su Yu shifted 100 zhang to the side. Whoosh! A sharp sound of air exploding could be heard at the spot where Su Yu had just stood. Looking back, he saw a blood-haired figure with a ferocious aura standing where Su Yu had been. Su Yu cursed inwardly. How could he have forgotten about Xueling? His heart continued to sink. He was trapped in such a narrow space, and there was no chance of him dodging. You have a fast reaction. Xueling grunted indifferently. His lacerated injuries had miraculously healed by half. Other than a slightly abnormal expression on his face, he did not suffer any injuries at all. At this moment, his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Good. Very good. You did not die in the mouth of the monster. Heaven wants me to personally take your life. Su Yu's pupils dilated. With a quick thought, he turned and entered a cave behind him. Chapter 468. The inside of the cave was pitch black, but to his soul eyes, it did not pose any obstruction. Su Yu could clearly see everything that was happening in the cave. The cave was not long, and Su Yu reached the end in just 10 steps. Only then did he realize that there were 5 or 6 smaller caves at the end of the cave. Without hesitation, Su Yu took out his cloak and concealed his figure and aura. He then chose a small passageway in the middle and quickly entered it. As soon as he entered, Sanguis caught up to him at lightning speed. He stood in front of the 5 caves with an ominous glint on his face. Su Yu's aura had completely disappeared, and the 6 passageways in front of him made it impossible for him to chase after him. With an unwilling expression, Sanguis left the cave and returned to the blood-red light screen. He would not put himself in danger again and again just to chase after Su Yu. He had to leave this place as soon as possible to ensure his safety. After exiting the cave, Sanguis raised his head and looked up. He immediately exerted his spiritual energy and soared into the air, approaching the red light screen. Xueling's eyes flashed. He remembered that when Su Yu used his spiritual energy to attack, he was injured. Naturally, he wouldn't rashly use spiritual qi again. Instead, he chose to use his physical body. Holding his breath, Sanguis gathered 10% of his strength into his right palm and punched. Bang! However, to Sanguis' surprise, he was repelled by a force that was twice as strong as before, sending him flying. With a muffled groan, a trace of blood flowed from his mouth. It was obvious that he had suffered serious internal injuries. Just 10% of his strength was already so terrifying. If he had used his full strength just now, he would have most likely died from the recoil. Sanguis looked at the blood-colored light screen with fear before shifting his gaze to the surrounding caverns. After pondering for a moment, he circulated 30% of his strength to bombard his physical body. The cave was blasted into a deep pit on the spot. But soon, Sanguis was stunned. Beyond the cave was not the outside world, but a kind of silvery white metal material. It was extremely hard, and could not be shaken by the power in the slightest. Sanguis wore a bewildered expression. He tried several times, even exerting his strongest combat power, but to no avail. His expression finally turned serious, and he chose a few more places. After blasting them open, he discovered that the cave was filled with silver metal. The entire body of the monster was covered by this metal. With his strength, it was impossible for him to break through the flesh and escape. Damn it! It's all that damn kid's fault. If I wasn't distracted from killing him, how could this monster have gotten away with it? Sanguis's killing intent was extremely strong. If he had been more cautious before, there was no reason he wouldn't have noticed the monster approaching. The monster must have seen that Su Yu and Xueling were focused on dealing with the other party. Hence, it chose to attack them. At the thought of this, Xueling's killing intent intensified. With a flicker of his pale eyes, Xueling returned to Su Yu's escaping body unwillingly. Of the 5 caves, Zhang Xian chose the rightmost one and entered it. It was only after Su Yu had entered the passageway that he noticed Xiao Rou. The whole was connected to another piece of meat. The whole is connected, and the other flesh. The cave was connected to even more caves. These caves were connected to each other, densely packed and crisscrossing. They were all passages. After choosing several passages, Su Yu couldn't even tell which direction he was heading in. Luckily, Su Yu was relieved when he sensed that Xueling had not chased after him. After thinking for some time, Su Yu found a corner and tried to blast open the wall of flesh. However, he got the same result as Xueling. There was a layer of extremely hard silver metal. What shocked Su Yu was that the silver metal was terrifyingly tough, and he did not know what it was. The golden scale dagger, which could even leave a white mark on the Eternal Stone King armor, showed signs of wear when it slashed against the silver metal. Su Yu was in disbelief. Could the silver metal in the monster's body be even harder than the Eternal Stone King armor? Su Yu gave up on trying to break open the wall of flesh and focused on finding other exit. Just like that, Su Yu traveled through the caves. After half a day, Su Yu felt extremely tired after using his soul eyes for so long. Coupled with the continuous battles, from the ghosts in the evil Ghost Valley to the Ghost Prison Envoy and the Soul-Seizing Palace, he did not have enough rest. He felt extremely tired. I need to find a place to rest, Su Yu muttered to himself. Suddenly, a fragrant scent, which made Su Yu shudder, assaulted his nostrils. The fragrance was completely out of place in this dark, damp, and slightly bloody environment. Su Yu's expression changed, carefully following the fragrance. Gradually, a spot of light appeared in front of him in the darkness. It was at the end of the tunnel. Su Yu held his breath, cautiously touching the wall as he approached. When he arrived at the end, he realized that the spot of light was coming from outside the cave. Looking over, he was shocked to discover that outside the cave was actually a bright and beautiful valley. The valley was lush with greenery. Butterflies were flying, the grass was long, and the orioles were chirping. It was a peaceful and beautiful world bathed in sunlight. What a beautiful scene of spring! Su Yu doubted his eyes. How could there be such a world in the monster's body? When he lifted his head to look, he saw that the wall of flesh above the valley was inlaid with countless crystals. It was these crystals that gave off a white glow, making the place look exceptionally bright. Moreover, from the center of the valley, there was an abundant amount of spirit energy, providing for the continuation and reproduction of life in the valley. Suyu clicked his tongue in wonder. Looking around, he realized that there was only the flesh that he was in. The cave led to this almost sealed valley. Filled with curiosity, Suyu carefully entered the valley. Standing on a small hill, Suyu was surprised to discover that there was a simple and crude thatched hut in the valley. The thatched cottage was half collapsed and decayed. It looked like it had been here for a long time. Around the thatched cottage was a man-made nursery. It looked like it had been planted with all kinds of food, but now it was overgrown with weed. Those weeds were clearly ordinary grass, but they grew luxuriantly in the nursery. They were 10 times the size of ordinary weeds, and the spirit energy in this place came from the soil of the nursery. Obviously, this nursery was not an ordinary place. The soil was definitely extraordinary. After confirming that there was no danger, Suyu approached the thatched cottage and entered through a crack. Most of the items in the house had turned to dust over the years. The wooden tables and chairs had all decayed. There was only a stone bed covered in dust. And on the stone bed, Suyu was shocked to discover that there was a fox's skeleton. It looked like it had been dead for a long time. Suddenly, Suyu's gaze turned serious. He realized that the fox's mouth was holding an emerald green round pillar. With a thought, Suyu took it down. What surprised Suyu was that the emerald green round pillar immediately emitted a ball of light. The ball of light shone in the air and transformed into a human figure. It was a snow-white fox. The fox's fur was white and spotless, and it emitted layers of white light. Its emerald green eyes were clear and clean, like the world's purest pupils. At this moment it was peacefully lying on the ground. It was clearly a fox, but it gave Suyu a sense of nobility, holiness, and elegance. It was as if Suyu was looking at a beautiful human woman. "Someone has finally come?" The fox suddenly spoke in the human language. Suyu was shocked. Was it a demonic beast of the demonic beast emperor level? No, even a demonic beast emperor would not be as intelligent as this fox. "What you see is an image left behind by me. No matter who you are, as long as you take my 9-jade spiritual pearl, you will become my successor and the master of this valley." Suyu was secretly surprised. An image? He did not bat an eyelid, continuing to listen. The soil of the nursery in the valley is the supreme growing soil, a treasure of the earth attribute. Regardless of whether it is for cultivation or for planting rare celestial plants that are difficult to survive, it has a unique effect. This nursery contains the accumulation of my life's worth of supreme growing soil. Every grain is extremely precious and can be exchanged for a fairy-level cultivation technique. Fated person, these are all yours now. Hearing this, Suyu gasped. Fairy-level cultivation technique. 1 grain of supreme growing soil could be exchanged for a fairy-level cultivation technique. Suyu could not believe his ears. This was an entire nursery. Suyu suddenly realized that he might have obtained a treasure that was beyond his imagination. But Suyu quickly calmed down. The fox was giving him his life's worth of savings. It was obviously not that simple. As expected, "As long as you promise me one thing, this place will be yours." The fox's voice was gentle. "I want you to head to the demon realm and bring my remains back to the demonic fox clan. Also, wait for me to pass on the message that I have succeeded." Hearing this, Suyu was confused. What is the demonic dimension? If you agree, please drip a drop of your blood into the 9-jade spiritual pearl. This will form an oath. If you do not complete the task within 100 years, your body will explode and you will die. Hearing this, Suyu's expression changed. Although the supreme growing soil was precious, it was not to the extent that Suyu would risk his life for it. Furthermore, if he wanted to take the supreme growing soil, he could do it himself. Why did he need to sign an oath with a dead person? But the white fox was prepared. There is a seal in the supreme growing soil. If you do not sign the oath, you will not be able to move. Similarly, this 9 jade spiritual pearl, if you do not sign the oath, you will not be able to leave this thatched hut. Otherwise, it will explode and destroy the entire valley. This caused Su Yu to hesitate for a moment. This fox was extremely strange, and most of what it had said was true. Thinking for some time, Su Yu sank into deep thought. After a long time, he bit his teeth and sacrificed a drop of blood. 100 years. It was hard to say if he could live for 100 years. The treasure in front of him naturally had to be obtained first. After saying this, Su Yu dripped his blood into the pearl, completing the contract. Within 100 years, he would deliver his remains to the demonic fox clan and pass on the message. He had succeeded. This caused Su Yu to be a little confused. Congratulations, this valley is already yours. You can bring it along with you. A voice suddenly appeared in Su Yu's mind. Chapter 469. At that moment, the 9 jade spiritual pearl in his palm suddenly became hot. Su Yu wanted to throw it away, but the 9 jade spiritual pearl entered Su Yu's palm with a whoosh. A pattern similar to the one in the 9 jade spiritual pearl appeared on his arm like a tattoo. Following that, the surrounding space disappeared. The beautiful spring valley had disappeared, and in its place was a spacious fleshy cave. Su Yu was stunned. Where was the valley? What surprised Su Yu even more was that he did not step out of the cave. Instead, he maintained the posture he had when he first discovered the valley, standing at the entrance of the cave and looking down. This was like a dream. Su Yu could not help but wonder if he was hallucinating. At that moment, the voice appeared in his mind again. The 9 jade spiritual pearl is the world of the valley. You will know when you use your soul energy to enter the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Hearing this, Su Yu released a bit of his soul energy into the 9 jade spiritual pearl with caution and curiosity. At that moment, the valley that had disappeared reappeared in front of him. This is... Su Yu could not hide his surprise. At that moment, the gentle voice appeared in his mind again. The 9 jade spiritual pearl is a world of its own. Just now, your soul energy was sucked into it. Hearing this, Su Yu was shocked. In other words, when he saw the valley just now, his soul energy had been absorbed into the 9 jade spiritual pearl, but he did not know it. What kind of divine ability was this? A demonic fox that had been dead for many years could actually set up such a divine ability. From now on, you only need to insert a bit of your soul energy to enter the world of the valley. You can also store some items in this world to replace the storage artifact. But you are still unable to bring the items in the valley out of the outside world. Because of the oath, you do not have complete control over the valley. If you complete the oath one day, the valley will belong to you completely, and everything will be under your control. Hearing this, Su Yu creased his brows. That fox still had a trick up her sleeve. Would Su Yu's plan to take out the supreme growing soil and exchange it for a treasure be foiled? But to be able to obtain such a huge storage artifact, Su Yu was satisfied. The cosmos mirror was too small. Ever since he had entered the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, he had obtained many good items. With a thought, Su Yu's soul entered the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Inside the pearl, he felt like he was in the real world, and he did not feel like his soul was just an illusory body. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu tore down the thatched cottage and used the wood within it to build a wooden frame. Then, he placed most of the treasures into the heaven and earth mirror. As for the cosmos thunder sword, the 9 yin-yang formation, the ghost-suppressing golden ring, and the frost moon dew pills that could replenish spiritual chi, they were not placed in the valley. Su Yu was still not very familiar with the 9 jade spiritual pearl. If something happened and he lost everything, it would be too late for him to cry. After doing all this, Su Yu could finally stop and take a good rest. Feeling the lack of spiritual energy in his body, Suyu seized the opportunity to recover his spiritual energy. While he was recovering, Suyu did not forget to check his gains. The first was the ghost prison token of the ghost prison messenger. Suyu curiously took it out, as he had experienced the power of this object. The ghost prison envoy was clearly heavily injured, but after activating this object, it had the power of the fairy realm. After checking it, Suyu was slightly disappointed. The ghost prison token had already been refined. Unless he found a way to erase the imprint within it, Suyu would not be able to activate it. The second item was the Purple Sun Incredible Umbrella. Suyu was filled with anticipation. He took it out and immediately injected a drop of blood to refine it. At once, an unfamiliar message appeared in his mind. Purple Sun Incredible Umbrella, a high-grade divine artifact, a fire-based treasure. It can release the powerful purple sun fire. The power and range of attack depend on the cultivation level of the wielder. Hearing this, Suyu's eyes glowed. A high-grade divine artifact. Moreover, it was an attack-type high-grade divine artifact. Suyu was overjoyed. The power of the umbrella was still vivid in his mind. Under the control of the white-haired youth, the purple sun fire that was released was even stronger than the fire origin. The power of this object was shocking. Suyu took a long time to calm the joy in his heart after obtaining another high-grade divine artifact. There was also a ghost crystal of the ghost prison envoy and a high-grade divine artifact, the divine flying ship. Suddenly, Suyu remembered the treasures that had appeared in the secret room of the transportation portal. Suyu had already confirmed the broken scripture and the broken sword, but there was one thing that he had not confirmed. Whoosh! A skeleton appeared in Suyu's palm. Suyu's eyes flashed, and a flame appeared on his fingertips. Under the brilliant flame, the shadow of the skeleton was reflected on the ground. As seen previously, the skeleton had 12 ribs, but the shadow on the ground only had 11. Suyu's gaze fixed on the third rib on the right. When the sunlight shone on the rib, it was as if it was shining on air, directly penetrating it. There was something wrong with this rib. Suyu's gaze flickered, his finger touching the rib. Strangely, his finger felt like it was real and he could touch it, but the sunlight penetrated it. With a pensive expression, Suyu gripped it with force, trying to pry it open. But the owner of the skeleton was unknown, and its bones were unusually hard. Suyu could not pry it open even with the strength of 9 bulls and 2 tigers. After trying for some time, Suyu gave up on using brute force. He thought for a moment, then tried to use his soul eyes to look through the rib to see if there was anything strange within it. However, when Suyu used his soul eyes and used his soul to see through things, a scene that shocked Suyu occurred. His soul had just touched the rib when a ferocious suction force suddenly appeared from within the rib, continuously sucking in his soul. In a short moment, 10% of Suyu's soul energy had been sucked away. This caused Suyu to be shocked. Soul energy was the foundation of a living being. Any damage to it would be disastrous. Losing 10% of his soul energy would cause unimaginable damage to Suyu. Perhaps because of the permanent damage to his soul, he would forever be stuck in the martial path. However, what happened next caused Suyu to be even more astonished. When Suyu wanted to stop, he realized that he could not. His soul was being sucked into the rib. As for the divine 9-dragon cauldron, it did not move and did not try to stop it. This caused Suyu's heart to sink. His vision gradually darkened, and he fell into a coma. When Suyu fainted due to the loss of a large amount of his soul energy, he heard the sound of something shattering. Then he fainted and lost consciousness. In his sleep, Suyu had a dream. There was an extremely warm energy that flowed continuously into his body. There was also an unfamiliar yet familiar aura that entered his soul. This dream seemed to last for a long time. When he woke up, Suyu's body was cold, his limbs stiff. It was obvious that he had slept for too long. "I'm still alive." Suyu gradually woke up, his consciousness also becoming clearer. He suddenly remembered the rib from before and could not help but feel relieved. He stood up abruptly. This movement caused Suyu to jump in fright. His cultivation level, which had just broken through to Heaven Master not long ago, had strangely reached the level of Human King. There were as many as 2 spirit energy crystals in his dantian. His spirit energy had doubled. It was far stronger than before, causing Suyu to be overwhelmed with emotions. But what surprised him even more was that his soul energy, which had been severely depleted, had not only completely recovered, but was even stronger than before. Heaven's Sun gazing at air, soul transformation realm top class. Suyu was shocked. After his Heaven's Sun gazing at air had been cultivated to stage 1 upper class, it had not progressed any further. But now it had broken through to stage 1 top class. Combined with his greatly increased soul energy, Suyu had, without a doubt, successfully broken through the shackles and reached soul transformation realm top class. According to the Heaven's Sun gazing at air, once he reached this stage, his soul could leave his body and fight. Just thinking about it made Suyu look forward to it. But why had such a change happened? Suyu hurriedly looked at the skeleton beside him. The rib had been split in half. His gaze turning serious, Suyu took out a pink scale from the cracked rib. It contained a very gentle energy. He felt a warm sensation on his palm. Wasn't this the same warmth he had felt in his dream? The shreds of energy in the scale penetrated his palm and entered Suyu's body. This startled Suyu. Wasn't this the energy that allowed him to break through to Human King? That's weird. Why would there be scales in the rib? Suyu was confused. However, now was not the time to look into it in detail. Judging from the stiffness of his body, he had been asleep for at least 10 days. He had to quickly think of a way to leave this place and meet up with Gang Dalei and the rest to complete the mission. Otherwise, the Heart's Oath scroll would not be a joke. Leaving in a flash, Suyu searched aimlessly. After an unknown amount of time, Suyu had completely lost his sense of direction. But along the way, what surprised Suyu was that a few of the flesh walls seemed to have been ravaged by something. Large pieces of silver metal. Naked. It was exposed. And what made Suyu's pupils dilate was that a portion of the silver metal was damaged. Could this be caused by Xue Ling using the body of the fairy realm? Suyu was bewildered. But he did not know that even Xue Ling could not do anything to this silver metal. Suddenly, Suyu felt a ripple in the air. He used the cloak to conceal his aura and figure, moving stealthily. He walked out of a flesh tunnel. The scene in front of him suddenly widened. It was a similarly spacious area of flesh. The flesh walls here were very strange. The flesh was pale white, and in the center of the area, there was a bright blood-red pearl. The pearl released a very strong spiritual pressure. The energy it contained caused Suyu's pupils to dilate. Even a strong fighter of the fairy realm did not possess such energy. Suyu's eyes flashed with passion. This was definitely a great treasure. But Suyu quickly calmed down. Using his soul eyes, he could faintly feel that there was something extremely evil hidden within the pearl. An ominous feeling welled up in Suyu's heart, causing him to subconsciously retreat a few steps. After thinking for some time, Suyu gave up on the idea of attacking it. Chapter 470. Suyu's expression changed, rolling forward with the momentum. The place where he had been standing suddenly exploded with a loud bang, and the ground was smashed into pieces. There was a tall and sturdy figure at the spot where he had been standing. It was the red-haired, white-eyed Xue Ling. Suyu's heart shuddered. He had finally met him. Humph, you won't find your technique. Xue Ling let out a cold grunt, his figure becoming blurry. When he reappeared, he was already half a zhang away from Suyu. Under his cold gaze, a giant fist smashed toward Suyu's chest. With the powerful body of the fairy realm, it was enough to kill Suyu on the spot. At the critical moment, Suyu retreated, taking out the purple sun incredible umbrella at the same time. After opening it, a frighteningly high temperature spread in all directions like a wave. The surrounding walls burned at once, turning into charcoal. The silver metal also became extremely hot, and the surrounding air began to burn in large sways. Xue Ling, who had attacked with his fist, was caught off guard and was engulfed by the wave of flames. Suddenly, the hair on the surface of his body turned into black ash on the spot, and a stinging and scorching feeling spread throughout his body. With a grunt, Xue Ling retreated, his face filled with killing intent. "Using Junior's treasure to deal with me. You deserve to die." This was the first time Xue Ling had been forced to retreat. Su Yu held the umbrella with one hand, his other hand secretly taking out the ghost-suppressing golden ring. He said calmly, "You do not deserve to die for killing people, but I deserve to die for resisting? Don't you think it's a joke?" Xue Ling's pale eyes were filled with deep hatred. "You dare kill a demon faction disciple? I will tear you into pieces." Suddenly, Xue Ling no longer charged into the purple sun fire. Instead, his pale eyes shot out two beams of white light. At once, there was a ripple in the air, but there were no changes. But with his soul eyes, Su Yu's pupils shrank. From within Xue Ling's pale eyes, two transparent figures the size of fingers had crawled out. Those figures had disheveled hair, their expressions filled with hatred. Their bodies were filled with resentment. After crawling out from Xue Ling's eyes, their figures grew rapidly, becoming an adult in the blink of an eye. But they were slightly blurry, as if they were about to dissipate. Their bodies were void, invisible to the naked eye. Only souls could see them. A ghost. Su Yu was shocked. This was the first time he had seen a human's ghost leave his body. Sangui's eyes had returned to their normal pitch-black color. Xue Ling feigned ignorance and confronted Su Yu from afar. As for the two ghosts, they ignored the flames that filled the sky and continued to walk toward Su Yu. When Su Yu approached them, he felt a chill run down his spine. These ghosts were soul bodies, objects at the mental level. No matter how powerful the purple sunfire was, it was still an attack at the physical level. Therefore, they were not afraid of ordinary physical attack. On top of that, he was in his soul form, so ordinary people would not be able to sense him at all. Even if he were to appear right before them, they might not be able to detect him. Once these ghosts got close, they would immediately attack his soul. Su Yu's heart thumped slightly, and a faint smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. As he weaved signs with one hand, Su Yu's soul shook and left his body abruptly, appearing in the outside world. As expected, when he felt the purple sunfire on his soul, it only felt a little warm and didn't cause much harm. Creak, the expressions of the two ghosts, who were slowly crawling over, stiffened. It was obvious that they had not expected Su Yu's soul to suddenly leave his body. But very quickly, their eyes were once again filled with venomous emotions. With a roar, they pounced toward Su Yu. From the strength of their souls, they should have been half gods when they were alive. It was as if they had suffered cruel pain and hatred before their deaths. Hence, the ghosts after their deaths were extremely venomous. But no matter how strong their souls were, they were not as strong as Su Yu's soul, which was at the soul transformation realm. If he was not wrong, his current soul was comparable to that of the fairy realm. Compared to their fuzzy souls, Su Yu's soul was almost in a solid state. His facial features were clear, and his hair could be distinguished. Even the lines on his palm were extremely clear. In the eyes of the ghosts, Su Yu's soul body was exactly the same as his real body. The only difference was that they could not be seen by the naked eye. With a cold smile, Su Yu's soul took a big step forward. At this moment, the two souls attacked. Thump, with a dull thud, the two ghosts attacked Su Yu's body together, but a dull thud that only souls could hear was produced. Their attacks landed on Su Yu's body, as if they were hitting a copper wall. Not only did Su Yu not move, but the two of them were forced back. The venomous eyes of the two ghosts were replaced by terror. With a hoarse shriek, the two ghosts turned to escape. Su Yu's expression turned cold. He took a big step forward, landing a punch on each of their bodies. Pooh! The bodies of the two ghosts were blasted into pieces on the spot, turning into sparkling crystals, falling to the ground and disappearing without a trace. Feeling the crushing strength of his soul, Su Yu was secretly delighted. Thinking about it, the feelings that the two ghosts felt when they faced him was the same as when he faced the physical body of the fairy realm, Xue Ling. That kind of unrivaled strength could not be compensated for. At this moment, Xue Ling did not realize that his two ghosts had been killed. He also did not know that Su Yu's soul body was flying in front of him with a cold smile. In Xue Ling's eyes, he only saw Su Yu closing his eyes, his breath gone. Even his spirit energy gradually stopped circulating, and the surrounding purple sun fire gradually shrank. Just as Xue Ling was feeling suspicious, Xue Ling suddenly felt intense pain all over his body. It was not that he was injured, but that his soul was injured, bringing about intense pain in his body. Letting out a mournful and painful roar, beads of sweat the size of beans rolled down Xue Ling's forehead continuously. His facial features were contorted, and his originally ferocious face looked unusually ferocious. He was extremely shocked, not knowing what had happened. Suddenly, he was shocked, and his eyes were once again covered by a layer of paleness. Looking over, he realized that his two ghosts had disappeared without a trace. Moreover, a ghost that looked exactly like Su Yu had escaped from his body with a broken piece of his soul. Su Yu had forcefully torn apart a part of his soul. Xue Ling was extremely shocked, the soul of the fairy realm. Without hesitation, Xue Ling threw a punch. However, the punch passed through Su Yu's soul. A physical attack could not harm Su Yu's soul in the slightest bit. Taking advantage of the situation, Su Yu tore another piece of Xue Ling's soul with his big hand. At once, Xue Ling felt an intense pain from his soul, and he almost fell to the ground. His expression changed. How could he still dare to fight against the soul of the fairy realm? Glancing at Su Yu's body, he saw that it was still surrounded by the purple sunfire, unable to get close. Clenching his teeth, Xue Ling retreated unwillingly. Su Yu's soul did not give chase. His body did not have much protection. Once his soul left, his body would be destroyed, and he would become a lonely ghost. Whoosh! Su Yu's soul returned to his body, keeping the purple sun incredible umbrella. He was extremely satisfied that his soul had left his body to fight. Even though he had imagined that the heavens sun gazing at air technique would not be so simple, when he had truly cultivated it to the point where his soul could leave his body to fight, it was actually this powerful. Even though Xue Ling's body was invincible, his soul was not as strong as Su Yu's, and he was still easily suppressed. However, Su Yu understood that he could not break Xue Ling's body, no matter what. Even if it was his soul, he could only tear it apart, causing irreparable damage to his soul. He was still far from the stage where he could easily destroy a person's soul. This battle could be said to be a draw. One had the physical body of the fairy realm, while the other had the soul of the fairy realm. Neither of them could defeat the other. Looking to his left and right, Su Yu kept his treasure and immediately flew to the other side. Before long, Su Yu discovered that a large number of walls had been ravaged. Many of the silver medals were missing. Su Yu had a thought, carefully looking for the ravaged flesh. A hole. Even though he could not accurately find the route of the ravaged flesh, he could roughly grasp the direction. Suddenly, a gust of cool wind blew past. It carried with it the fresh air of the outside world. Su Yu's expression turned serious. He followed the direction of the wind and quickly rushed over. In front of a wall, the golden metal had been forcefully broken open. A 5-zhang tall tunnel that could only allow one person to pass through appeared. This tunnel led to the outside world. Su Yu was overjoyed. He bent down and quickly passed through the tunnel. Suddenly, Su Yu discovered that a pink scale had appeared in the tunnel. Why is there one here as well? Su Yu was extremely shocked, his eyes filled with confusion. However, He had to leave this place quickly. With a flash of his figure, Su Yu charged out of the monster's body. Within the monster's body, where Su Yu and Xue Ling had fought, Xue Ling returned. Sanguis returned with a nervous look on his face. He rushed to the spacious wall and hastily looked at the blood-red bead. Seeing that it was still there, his expression relaxed. Luckily, that kid's eyesight is not that good. It looks like he did not realize that this red, round ball is the monster's crystal core. If I take it out, the monster will definitely die. The energy contained within this crystal core is beyond imagination. If I can bring it back to the soul-seizing palace, I will definitely be rewarded handsomely. After saying this, Xue Ling flew near the blood-red, round ball. His eyes were filled with greed, and he took out a jade shovel from his sleeves. Luckily, after digging for 10 days, I will be able to dig out the crystal core very quickly. At that moment, the walls around the crystal core had been dug out. Only a thin layer was left, and the crystal core could be taken out. After digging with the shovel, Xue Ling finally dug out the crystal core. With a toss, the crystal core fell. Xue Ling had a delighted expression, and he grabbed it in his palm. Just as he was about to observe it carefully, he suddenly had a strange expression. The round ball suddenly expanded and shrunk like a breathing heart. Within the round ball, a red light circulated, causing the whole ball to turn dark red. Xue Ling's expression changed. He knew that something was amiss, and he immediately threw away the strange crystal core. However, all of a sudden, a red thread that was as thin as a hair shot out from the round ball and wrapped itself around Xue Ling's wrist. Crack, a shocking scene appeared. Xue Ling, who had the physical body of the fairy realm, had his wrist wrapped around, and with a cracking sound, his wrist was cut off. The wound was extremely neat, and it was as smooth as a mirror. This was the physical body of the fairy realm. The physical body of a half-god, which did not even leave a single wound on it, had its wrist sliced off by a red thread so easily. Xue Ling could not help but let out a shrill cry. His expression changed drastically, and he retreated frantically. Creak, however, from the round ball, hundreds of blood-red threads shot out suddenly, wrapping themselves around Xue Ling. After that, a soft sound like tofu being cut could be heard. Xue Ling did not even have the time to scream before he was cut into hundreds of pieces of minced meat. The blood-red threads wrapped themselves around him, pulling all of his flesh back into the blood-red, round ball. The dignified Xue Ling, who had a physical body of the fairy realm, had died just like that. In the outside world, Su Yu, who was flying high up in the sky, suddenly felt an evil aura exploding forth. He could not help but turn his head to take a look. However, what he could see was a seemingly normal grassland, as well as a hole that had been broken open. "Brother Black Snow, this is great. You are not dead." Suddenly, a surprised voice could be heard from high up in the sky. It was Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang, holding onto their jade pendants, patiently waiting within the cluster of clouds. Sensing that Su Yu had come out, they were overjoyed. Su Yu let out a smile, welcoming them. "Black Snow, you are too lucky. You stayed in there for a full 10 days. Brother Dalei and I thought you were dead." The two of them looked at Su Yu as if they were looking at a monster. Su Yu said resentfully, "I was just lucky. If not for the situation, I might have died in the mouth of that monster." "This is not a good place to talk. Xue Ling will come out soon. Let's leave quickly." Summoning the divine flying ship, the three of them broke through the air and left. On the flying ship, Su Yu said, "Where is Miss Yu-chan?" "She has gone to meet up with her senior," Gang Dalei said. "She has already left." Su Yu nodded. "That is good. We can carry out our mission now. Brother Dalei, is it time for you to tell us where to go and what to find?" Hearing this, Gang Dalei's expression turned serious. "Since we are at the 7th level of the Divine Pavilion, it is time to tell you." Master nurtured me so that I could enter the 7th level of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion to find a divine herb called the thunder herb. This herb only grows in the great hall of thunder of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. It naturally contains the power of thunder and is abnormally tough. If it can be made into armor, it can defend against the thunder of the heavenly disaster. Hearing this, Suyu was excited. When he had broken through to Heaven Master, Suyu had personally experienced the murderous intent of heaven toward him. That time, it had been a narrow escape. Now, there was still a lump of disastrous thunder in his body, which had become a huge problem. Hence, he had to use all his lightning-based techniques to suppress the disastrous thunder to prevent it from exploding. He was not far from breaking through to the fairy realm. At that time, the heavenly disaster would be even more frightening. He had to start preparing to deal with the heavenly disaster. The thunder herb in front of him was a good choice. Even the sloppy old man had specially searched for it. It could be seen how effective the herb was in resisting the disastrous thunder. Master's target is 9 thunder herbs. If there are more, I can give them to you. Gang Dalei seemed to know what the two of them were thinking. Suyu nodded. Of course. If that is the case, let's set off quickly. According to the records, we are not far from the corpse grassland. We should be there soon. Suyu nodded. He adjusted his direction and flew toward the great hall of thunder. One day passed. Amidst the thousands of green mountains, a mountain floated in the air. On the mountain, there were many ancient and magnificent palaces, standing majestically. Waves of ancient aura were emitted from the palaces, which had mottled walls and dim tiles. A feeling of the passage of time, like the river of the world, swept over. Around the mountain, there were dozens of Chinese feet of thunderbolts circling it, emitting a tyrannical aura of destruction. On the mountain 1,000 feet away, Yu-chan had a respectful expression. She was carefully explaining something to a white-robed young man who was sitting cross-legged on a green rock. After listening, the white-robed young man slowly opened his eyes. His gaze caused the air to ripple and the mountain to tremble. His eyes, which were calm like an ancient well, were so sharp. Schwelling? I will remember this. After I leave the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, I will settle the score with him. The people of the returning principal palace are not so easily bullied. Hearing this, Yu-chan was secretly delighted. The man in front of her was a disciple of the outside sanctum of the returning principal palace, Yang Yi-dao. He was ranked near the top. His battle abilities were not much weaker than Schwelling's. The leader of the returning principal palace was Yang Yi-dao. In the mysterious heavenly battle, he was ranked near the top and was allocated to the 7th level. Yu-chan and the rest were allocated to the 6th level. That was why Yu-chan and the rest had rushed to the 7th level to meet up with him. But is the matter of meeting the ghost prison envoy true? Yang Yi-dao suddenly said seriously. Hearing this, Yu-chan nodded. It is absolutely true. I would definitely not mistake the ghost prison token that the other party took out. Yang Yi-dao's tone was serious. This matter needs to be reported to the palace. The ghost prison envoy is not extinct. If this matter were to spread, it would cause a commotion. Since the ghost prison envoy appeared, the deaths of Yang Jian and the other two cannot be blamed on you. They were lucky to be alive. Yes, Senior Yi-dao. Yu-chan bowed in acknowledgement. She then hesitated. But Yang Jian and the other two are dead. Without the 3 of them, it would be difficult to make it past the 5 elemental divine thunder stage. Hearing this, Yang Yi-dao let out a grunt. They only came to form the 5 elemental formation. Most of the people from the 18 blessed and heavenly lands were transported to the 6th and 7th levels. With the reputation of the returning principal palace, would we not be able to recruit a few wandering martial artists? Even if they wanted to come, I might not be willing. Yang Yi-dao let out a grunt. The deaths of Yang Jian and the other two made him unhappy. Yu-chan was speechless. Just at this moment, 3 figures appeared in the sky, flying over here at lightning speed. They were Su Yu and the other 2, who had kept the divine flying ship. Yang Yidao glanced to the side, his gaze turning cold. Yuchan was shocked. Why is it them? Yang Yidao was surprised. Are the 3 wandering martial artists who work together to deal with the ghost prison envoy? Observing them from afar, Yang Yidao said indifferently, 2 half-gods. One of them has an inhuman aura, and the other is a human king. Their abilities are passable, but I do not know if they have the right to form the 5 elemental formation. Go, let them come over. Out of respect for you, I'll let them off lightly. However, I want to test their approximate strength first. If their strength isn't up to par, losing their lives would be a small matter, but it would affect our safety. Yang Yidao waved his hand. His words weren't very courteous. Who asked Su Yu and the other 2 to be wandering martial artists? Without a faction, without anyone to rely on, it was normal for them to be looked down upon. Yuchan was elated. Thank you, Senior Yidao. They will not disappoint you. In her eyes, it was a great favor for Su Yu and the other wandering martial artists to be taken care of by the outside sanctum disciples of the returning principal palace. Chapter 471. Su Yu and the other 2 had long noticed the presence of Yuchan and an unfamiliar fighter. Hence, they slowed down. Brother Dalei, this woman's goal is the same as ours. Qin Zhiyang said hesitantly. Will this affect our plan? The 3 of them were surprised to meet Yuchan here. What we should be worried about is not Yuchan, but that person. Su Yu looked at the white-robed youth sitting cross-legged on the green rock. He gave Su Yu a dangerous feeling, probably on par with Shui Ling. Gang Dalei's gaze also fell on the white-robed youth, his brows creasing. That man is very strong. Even if we work together, we might not be his match. The sudden appearance of the white-robed youth gave Su Yu and the other 2 a huge pressure. The 3 of you, we meet again. Yuchan had a joyous expression, turning to look at Su Yu. Her eyes lit up. Congratulations, Sir Black Snow, for coming out of that monster's body alive. She was secretly shocked. She had never thought that Su Yu would be able to escape from the body of a fairy realm monster alive. Combined with their previous battle experience, Yuchan did not dare underestimate this heaven master. Oh, you've broken through. Congratulations on your great improvement in abilities. Yuchan had just noticed that Su Yu's body was emitting the aura of a human king. She was secretly shocked. Not only did Su Yu not die, he had benefited from his misfortune, obtaining such a great opportunity. Even in the world of Jiuzhou, breaking through from Heaven Master to Human King required a long period of time. Only a place like the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion could create such an unbelievable miracle. Even though Yuchan was shocked, she did not suspect anything. Su Yu smiled and returned the greeting. I was just lucky. I did not expect to meet Miss Yuchan here. Hearing this, Yuchan asked bluntly, Is your goal the Great Thunder Palace? Gang Dalei calmly glanced at the white-robed man, extremely fearful. I did not expect us to have the same goal as Miss Yuchan. The 3 of them maintained a slight distance from Yuchan, able to attack or retreat. You saved me, Yuchan said helplessly. I will not bite the hand that feeds me. I am here to bring you good news. Qin Zhiyang said warily, Please speak. That is the outer court disciple of my origin returning palace, Yang Yidao. He is the leader of this trip to my origin returning palace. If you want to successfully enter, my senior can help you. It was not difficult to hear the deep admiration she had for Yang Yidao from Yuchan's words. Su Yu furrowed his brows, then turned his gaze toward Gang Dalei. After all, he was the leader of this trip. Gang Dalei was also very hesitant. According to their original plan, they would barge into the Thunder Palace on their own to look for the Thunder Herb. If they conspired with Yang Yidao, whose strength was unfathomable, they would not be able to control themselves. However, if they rejected him now, How could Yang Yidao tolerate them entering the Thunder Palace to compete? Driving them away was a light punishment, but if they were vicious and merciless, it was highly possible that they would be killed on the spot. After thinking hard for a long time, Gang Dalei did not have a choice. The only thing he could do now was to enter it first. All right, thank you. Gang Dalei cupped his hands in response. Yu-chan seemed to understand their doubts. She let out a smile and said, "You can be at ease. With Senior Yidao around, your safety is guaranteed. As for the rewards after you enter, it will depend on your own abilities." Her words sounded extremely fair, but what could they use to depend on their own abilities with Yang Yidao? If he insisted on snatching the treasures that they had discovered, what could they do to him? However, since things had come to this, they could only take one step at a time. They pretended not to know and flew over with Yu-chan. When the three of them arrived in front of Yang Yidao, he opened his eyes. His eyes glowed, and he struck a palm toward Gang Dalei without warning. Gang Dalei was slightly shocked. He used both his arms to block his chest. At the same time, his spirit energy surged, forming two layers of defense. Thump, with a dull thud, the spirit energy barrier on the surface of Gang Dalei's body was torn apart like a piece of paper. The punch, which did not seem powerful enough, broke through the barrier and struck Gang Dalei's arms. There was a dull sound of flesh hitting flesh. Gang Dalei's expression changed, and he retreated a few steps. His eyes were filled with shock. After Yang Yidao's punch, he retracted his fist, slightly satisfied. "Take 3 steps back. Your body is not bad. Pass." After saying this, his body moved like lightning, pointing a finger toward Qin Zhiyang, who was beside him. Qin Zhiyang did not even think, grabbing a strand of hair with the back of his hand. He weaved signs with one hand, quickly casting a curse technique. Qin Zhiyang's hair immediately appeared on Yang Yidao's finger. However, before he could leave a shallow mark, Yang Yidao's lips curled up. With a flick of his finger, the shallow mark was flicked away on the spot. Qin Zhiyang's expression turned pale. He grunted, revealing a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His finger touched Qin Zhiyang's chest without any hindrance. However, he retracted his strength at the last moment, his face filled with disappointment. Although the curse technique is strange and hard to defend against, it is obvious that you have not mastered it. You can only barely pass. Finally, he shot a glint toward Suyu. Junior Yu-chan has many praises for you. Let me see how capable you are. In terms of true abilities, Suyu might not lose to Yang Yidao in a direct confrontation. However, it was obvious that Suyu would not easily reveal his trump card. Whoosh! Yang Yidao's 2 fingers formed a sword, forming the shape of a blade. His eyes shone with a sharp light, and his fingers were like a long, biting cold knife, as he slashed at Suyu's seemingly calm figure in the air. Creak! At once, the air rippled. The surrounding spirit energy was dispersed violently under the pressure. It was clearly a normal finger, but it had an extraordinary power. At the same time, a 5-zhang illusory shadow suddenly appeared, slicing toward Suyu. Yu-chan's expression changed. Senior Yidao actually used a shred of blade will. Suyu was clearly the weakest, but Yang Yidao had used an even stronger probing attack. Seeing this, Suyu's expression was calm, not showing any signs of panic. Without thinking, he weaved signs with both hands. The pale white ice origin gushed out from his abdomen, turning his clone into a ball of dark green flames. 1 white and 1 red, 2 extreme energies circled around each other, illuminating the surroundings. At the same time, Suyu weaved signs with one hand again. The 2 spirit energy crystals in his body released a large amount of spirit energy, forming a defensive light barrier on the surface of his body. Creak! The shadow of the blade sliced down, colliding with the energy ball formed by the ice and fire. With a soft sound, the ice ball was extinguished, followed by the fireball. The shadow of the blade sliced past without stopping. The blade had yet to reach Suyu, but the defensive light barrier of spirit energy on the surface of Su Yu's body flickered under the pressure, looking like it was in imminent danger. Su Yu's expression was calm. He did not expect to easily block his opponent's blade. With a thought, the bronze mask on his face glowed with a clear light, a sign that he was about to activate the eternal mask. The reflection dispersed abruptly. It was Yang Yidao who had taken the initiative to stop. He looked at Su Yu in disappointment. Your reputation is exaggerated. Your cultivation level is too low, and the origin that you have comprehended is not pure. It seems like you have relied on your two companions to obtain consecutive victories throughout the journey. But you barely passed. I did not expect you to receive that blade. Yang Yidao withdrew his blade intent, regaining his composure. Su Yu shrugged nonchalantly, keeping the treasure he was about to use. Friend, what do you mean? Gang Dalei was a little dissatisfied. Yang Yidao naturally said, I am Yang Yidao. I believe you have heard of my name. After the simple test just now, you have barely met the requirement. Now, follow me into the Thunder Palace. This Emperor Thunder Mountain is filled with all sorts of lightning seals. If you do not wish for any accidents to occur and die here, you had better listen to my orders. Do not act recklessly and invite a fatal disaster upon yourself. Do not blame me for ignoring you. Hearing this, Su Yu shuddered. Was the mountain floating in the air, filled with an ancient aura, the Thunder Emperor Mountain? Su Yu was extremely shocked as he looked at the mountain. This was because the thunderbolts in his dantian, regardless of whether it was the purple thunderbolts he had cultivated or the suppressed disastrous thunderbolts, were all restless and eager to break out of Su Yu's body and return to the Thunder Mountain. It was as if there was something within the mountain that could command them. If there are no objections, let's set off now. Yang Yidao rubbed his left index finger with his right palm. A black jade ring on his index finger glowed with a dim light at once. In front of him, 5 round pearls, each 5 zhang in size, appeared out of thin air. Red, orange, yellow, blue, and purple. Each of the round pearls had a different color, forming 5 different colors. This is the Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation, Yang Yidao said. It can trap and defend, and is especially effective against lightning. The 3 of you, each stand on a ball and insert spirit energy to activate it. Only then can we safely enter the Thunder Emperor Mountain and enter the Great Thunder Palace. Hearing this, Su Yu's eyes heated up. A formation that could counter lightning? Gang Dalei also had a similar expression. Wasn't the sloppy old man searching for a treasure that could counter lightning? The treasure in front of him, humph. Remember, this formation requires 5 people to control it at the same time. The spirit energy must not stop for even a moment. Otherwise, the formation will break apart immediately. At that time, Junior Yu-chan and I will be able to protect ourselves in the depths of the Thunder Emperor Mountain. However, the 3 of you might not be so lucky. Hearing this, Su Yu restrained the heat in his eyes. At the same time, all of you must be careful when using this Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation. Do not damage it. I borrowed this formation from an uncle of the returning Principal Palace. You will not be able to bear the consequences if it is damaged. Yang Yidao was not courteous. Su Yu and the other 2 were secretly shocked. Yang Yidao was already so powerful, close to the level of the fairy realm. The uncle he spoke of must be extraordinarily powerful. In other words, the grade of this Dry Cloud 5 elemental formation must be extremely high. At the very least, it was not below a high-grade divine artifact. In fact, it might even be a half-manufactured spiritual artifact. Thinking of this, Su Yu was even more tempted. Set off. Yang Yidao gave a low grunt, landing on a purple ball with a flash. Chapter 472. Each of the 5 balls was 30 feet apart from each other, forming a circular formation. Under Yang Yidao's command, the 5 of them imbued spirit energy into the balls at the same time. At once, the 5 balls exploded with a brilliant spirit light, forming a five-colored light beam that enveloped the circular formation. Su Yu and the others were also protected by the light beam. Whoosh! Under Yang Yidao's control, the five balls maintained the circular formation, slowly flying toward the Thunder Emperor Mountain. At another location, Long Wuxin and Qin Xianer, who had not been seen for 10 days, were running for their lives in anger. Their figures were in a sorry state, the spirit light on the surface of their bodies dim, their auras weak. Sister Wuxin, is that outer sanctum disciple a lunatic? Why does he keep chasing us? We escaped from the Fairy King's ruins with much difficulty and obtained many treasures and resources. We were just about to find a quiet place to digest them. To think that we would meet such a bad person. Qin Xianer was full of grievances. Long Wuxin's expression was grave. The first time he chased us might have been an accident. But the second time he chased us, I'm afraid we have been targeted by him. I don't know what we did that attracted his attention. Qin Xianer wrinkled her nose, fiercely waving her small fist. Humph, wait until I have refined the legacy of the Fairy King, then I will teach him a lesson. Long Wuxin sighed. Let's escape successfully first. At another location, the people of the 4 great ancient clans appeared in a giant stone forest. Near the stone forest, blood splattered and corpses littered the ground. There were dozens of them. At the center of the stone forest, there were hundreds of people surrounding a giant black and white formation in a chaotic confrontation. Among the 4 great ancient clans, the pretty lady revealed a playful and disdainful expression. All of you want to go to the 8th level? Humph, forget about the few top half-gods. But the ordinary half-gods and a group of human kings are simply too greedy and seeking their own deaths. Lady, what should we do? Shi Jie stood respectfully at the side. Xinggu let out a cold laugh. Of course, let them kill each other first. Once they have killed enough, I will go over. Even though they are unsightly, there are quite a number of them. I am in a weakened state and cannot fight them head-on. At the same time, I also obtained a few ghost path treasures from the Crying Ghost Mountain, which I can use to treat my injuries and recover my battle power to the fairy realm. Xing Ji's face was filled with hatred. Humph, I will remember the favor of that palm strike from that old thing. And that damned Black Snow Devil King, don't let me meet him. Otherwise, I will teach you a lesson. 100,000 feet away, on a mountain, a purple-robed person stood in the wind. It was the Ghost King, Bai Qi. Master, let's wait for them to finish killing before we go over. There are too many of them. If they discover that I'm an evil spirit, I'm afraid they'll attack me together and expose you, Master. Hearing this, a soft sound of acknowledgement came from the painting in his bosom. A hint of cunning flashed across Bai Qi's eyes. A hint of worry unconsciously appeared between his brows as he muttered, I wonder if that brat will rush to the 8th level of the Divine Pavilion. Thunder Emperor Mountain. A 5-colored light pillar approached the Thunder Emperor Mountain slowly. When it was 500 feet away from the Thunder Emperor Mountain, a lightning arc suddenly shot out from the Thunder Emperor Mountain. Its power was not weaker than that of a Heaven Master. When it struck the 5-colored light pillar, it did not even cause a ripple. When it was 300 feet away, a lightning bird with power comparable to that of a human king flew over. Its body was covered in raging flames, and it struck the Thunder Emperor Mountain fiercely. However, with a creak, the lightning bird disintegrated into fine lightning arcs on the spot. As for the 5-colored light pillar, there were no changes. It was 100 feet away. Finally, a low roar could be heard from the Thunder Emperor Mountain. A 3-zhang tall lightning tiger with a pair of lightning wings on its back roared as it charged over. A half-god. Moreover, it was an attack from a top-notch half-god. From the body of the giant tiger, Su Yu felt an aura similar to that of Long Wuxin and Yu Chan roar. With a furious roar, the giant tiger struck the 5-colored light pillar fiercely. What was surprising was that the 5-colored light pillar still did not have any movement. Instead, the giant tiger, which had half of its body destroyed, turned into lightning again and returned to the Thunder Emperor Mountain. Finally, the 5-colored light pillar arrived at the Thunder Emperor Mountain. However, there was no attack. Just as the few of them heaved sighs of relief, Yang Yidao, who had a tense expression, let out a sigh of relief. Our luck is not bad. The lightning spirit of the Thunder Emperor Mountain seems to still be in a deep sleep. Lightning spirit? One did not even need to think to know that it was an extremely dangerous object. From Yang Yidao's slightly relaxed tone, one could tell that he was wary of the lightning spirit. "All right," said Yang Yidao. "You can temporarily remove the dry cloud 5 elemental formation. Before we reach the Thunder Palace, there will be no more danger. Now I need to prepare some items to enter the Thunder Palace. All of you can move around freely. Apart from the Thunder Palace, you can go anywhere you want." After hearing what was said, the 4 of them split up immediately. Suyu locked onto a relatively old palace that was in ruins. After entering, he realized that the items within had already been plundered by someone. It was obvious that it was not the first time that someone had entered the Thunder Emperor Mountain. In the past 100 years, it had been invaded countless times. Looking at the wall that had been scraped off, then looking at the ground that had been dug 3 feet into the ground, Suyu blushed with shame. They had really dug 3 feet into the ground. After which, he spent half a day entering the palace one after another. The results were quite depressing. Other than 1 or 2 spiritual plants that had some spiritual energy, there were no other gains. Looking at them from afar, their faces were also ghastly pale. They must have been angered by the activity of digging 3 feet into the ground. As such, all the buildings in the palace were searched once, and there were no gains. In the end, Suyu stood in front of a palace that was not small. After finding nothing, he gave up on the search and prepared to return. Suddenly, Suyu realized that at a corner of the palace, there was a strange creature that was looking at him coldly. It was a catfish. Its whole body was sticky and soft, and there was a red cockscomb on its head. Putting aside what kind of strange fish it was, this fish was actually on land. Did it not need to live in the water? With a thought, Suyu extended his hand and wanted to grab it. However, the catfish drilled into the ground and disappeared into thin air. Using his soul eyes to probe, he realized to his surprise that there seemed to be a spacious underground secret room 1,000 feet underground. It was in a completely sealed state, and there were no signs that it had been opened before. Suyu's expression changed, and he revealed a surprised expression. For such a secret underground room, there had to be an extremely important item of the Thunder Emperor Mountain. However, there were many people present, and Suyu naturally would not probe it. The 4 of them gathered again and looked at one another. They did not need to talk to know that they had no gains. The only thing we can count on is the Thunder Palace. This palace is the main palace of the Thunder Emperor Mountain. Because of its special defense, it has never been opened. If we can succeed in this trip, our gains will definitely not be small. Yu-chan had a look of anticipation. At that moment, Yang Yidao suddenly woke up from his seclusion. The ring on his index finger glowed with a dim light. Once again, as if he was performing a magic trick, a purple flower appeared in his hand. Within the flower, there was a huge amount of vital energy. It was clearly a nameless blue flower that was as thick as a finger, but it filled the surrounding 100 feet with extremely dense vital energy in an instant. The vital energy was so dense that it seemed to be in a liquefied state. Taking a small breath, Suyu took in a large amount of vital energy. The tyrannical vital energy was not something that an immortal realm martial artist could bear. Suyu felt an explosive pain in his body. He was shocked, and he held his breath hurriedly, expelling the vital energy from his body. Gang Dalei and Qin Zhiyang had the same reaction as Suyu, faintly revealing astonished expressions. What kind of flower was that? Even the vital energy crystal on the Eternal Stone King armor did not have such frightening vital energy. Soul-suppressing orchid! Yuchan cried out in alarm. Senior Idao, this is an important treasure that you need to make a breakthrough to the fairy realm. Are you going to take it out and use it? Yang Idao's gaze turned serious, and he spoke in a low voice. For 100 years, no one has been able to open the Thunder Palace, and the reason is because of the 5 elemental divine thunder. Only by using the great amount of vital energy contained within this object, and by activating the dry cloud 5 elemental formation to its maximum, will there be hope of breaking through the 5 elemental divine thunder and entering. After all, the dry cloud 5 elemental formation was his uncle's treasure, and it had already been refined. If he did not insert a great amount of spiritual artifact, he would not be able to unleash its greatest power. Yuchan felt that it was a pity, and her eyes could not leave the soul-suppressing orchid. This soul-suppressing orchid is a treasure that Senior obtained from the faction with a clue of a fairy-level cultivation technique. For this, you even offended a divine master uncle. It's not worth it for Senior brother to give up just like that for the sake of the Thunder Hall. Yang Idao was also a little reluctant to part with the soul-suppressing orchid. With a low tone, he said, "If it was possible, I wouldn't want to do it either. However, I have already failed to break through once. This time, my teacher said that there is a high possibility of triggering the heavenly tribulation. I have to find the thunder herb and weave it into a lightning-repelling armor. Otherwise, what's the use of having the soul-suppressing orchid?" Hearing this, Su Yu and the other two secretly exchanged glances. The worst-case scenario had occurred. The other party was only doing this for the thunder herb. It would be hard to avoid a fierce battle later. In the outside world, the value of one thunder herb is not lower than the soul-suppressing orchid. If I can obtain 2 or more thunder herbs, I might not necessarily suffer a loss, Yang Idao added. Yuchan pondered for a while, then sighed and said, "I hope so." Yang Idao stood up and summoned the dry cloud 5 elemental formation again. "Everyone, come up." The group of people once again stood on top of the sphere. They were all the spheres that they originally belonged to. Under his control, the dry cloud 5 elemental formation flew to the most majestic hall, the Thunder Hall. This palace was completely different from the other palaces in the ruins. Not only was it well preserved, but it was also surrounded by 5-colored lightning. Standing in front of the giant palace, Su Yu felt an oppressive feeling, as if he was facing a giant prehistoric beast. It was as if there was an extremely frightening thing in the hall. An ominous feeling welled up in Su Yu's heart. But there was no time to hesitate. Yang Idao held the soul-suppressing orchid in his hand and controlled the spell to approach the Thunder Hall. A thunderous roar could be heard. 10 5-colored lightning bolts roared and turned into 10 ferocious monsters of different shapes and sizes. What was frightening was that they were the auras of top-notch half-gods. With a furious roar, the 10 ferocious monsters charged forward, roaring. Finally, ripples began to appear on the calm 5-colored light pillar. Su Yu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They blocked it so easily? But at that moment, the 10 monsters turned into lightning again and fused together. At once, a shocking spiritual pressure assaulted them. A frightening power that was close to the fairy realm gradually spread. But the lightning turned into a 3-zhang tall giant, looking down at Su Yu and the rest coldly, speaking in the human language, "Those who trespass the forbidden grounds shall die." After saying this, the giant's body surged forward. Only Xue Ling and Yang Idao had such an oppressive aura, but Yang Idao's expression was calm, not even looking at him. Instead, he stared at the 5-colored lightning surrounding the Thunder Hall. Thump! As the giant charged forward, the 5-colored light ring flickered continuously. The instructor's ball let out a whimper, showing signs of being destroyed. At that moment of crisis, the 5-colored lightning around the palace suddenly danced wildly. As if they had been summoned, they gathered together, transforming into a 300-zhang tall giant. The giant wore a cloak and had a crown on his head. He sat majestically at the back of the hall. A pair of eyes surrounded by 5 colors spat out the aura of a king, looking down at them coldly. Thump, with that look, the 5-colored light pillar was destroyed on the spot. Su Yu and the rest of them all suffered a slight backlash, and their faces were filled with terror. Divine Master! Gang Dalei gasped, his expression turning pale with fright. The king-like giant said coldly, "You have trespassed on my forbidden grounds. What are your crimes?" Chapter 473. Raising their heads to look at the figure of an emperor, everyone felt so stifled that they found it hard to breathe. Was this really the aura of a divine master? Just by standing in front of him, he was already so oppressive. If he were to make a move, wouldn't the 5 of them be instantly annihilated? Hold your breath and focus, don't be deceived by external appearances. At this time, a deafening rebuke resounded in everyone's ears. It was Yang Yidao. His expression was calm as he covered his voice with spiritual energy, jolting everyone back to their senses. This isn't the Thunder Emperor himself, but the 5 elemental divine lightning that he left behind. It contains the effect of confusion. Yang Yidao stared at the 5 elemental divine lightning and said slowly, "Confusion?" Su Yu came to a sudden realization. If there really was a terrifying existence like the Divine Master, it would not be their turn to barge into the Thunder Emperor Mountain. With that, Yang Yidao crushed the soul-suppressing orchid in his palm. With a cracking sound, this precious herb that was filled with boundless true qi was destroyed just like that. At the same time, a surge of liquefied jinqi gushed into the 5 lightning orbs. In an instant, the broken 5-colored light curtain lit up again, and it was more than 10 times stronger than before. Humph! The 300 Zhangtal monarch snorted coldly. Those cold eyes with 5-colored lightning circling them looked over once more. Instantly, the 5-colored light screen trembled violently, and the 5 balls whimpered incessantly, showing signs of cracking again. This caused everyone to be extremely shocked. Even the dry cloud 5 elemental formation showed signs of cracking after sacrificing a soul-suppressing orchid. Is the 5 elemental lightning really so powerful? Barge in. The dry cloud 5 elemental formation won't last for long. Yang Yidao revealed a serious expression. He formed a seal with one hand, and the 5 round balls spun around and charged toward the giant door of the Great Thunder Hall. Humph! The monarch snorted coldly again and grabbed downward with his 5 fingers. In an instant, the dry cloud 5 elemental formation was enveloped by a palm made of 5-colored lightning, and it suddenly came crashing down. Chi-chi! The dry cloud 5 elemental formation clashed violently with the palm, and the 5-colored pillar of light was unable to withstand the immense pressure as a cracking sound rang out. Su Yu's eyes were sharp, and he noticed that the light screen formed by the blue ball that he was in had started to crack. At the same time, the blue ball beneath Su Yu's feet dimmed rapidly. From the looks of it, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Even if the 5 elemental divine Thunder Emperor was not a divine master, it was definitely not an ordinary fairy. Danger was imminent, and the 5 of them were in danger of being annihilated in an instant. Yang Yidao's expression changed drastically. Not good. The 5 elemental divine thunder's power was even stronger than what was rumored, and it was already very close to the divine master realm, which meant that it had reached the level of a late-stage fairy. Quick, if you have any true qi, pour it into the dry cloud 5 elemental formation. Otherwise we'll really die here. As soon as these words came out, everyone's heart sank. The 5 elements' divine lightning was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Even if he used a soul-suppressing orchid and activated the dry cloud 5 elemental formation with all his might, he still wouldn't be able to withstand it. As he spoke, Yang Yidao's complexion turned slightly pale. He took out several spiritual herbs, spiritual pills, and the like that from his spatial ring that contained vital energy. However, the vital energy they contained was very weak, and it was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. Gotcha! Amidst the deathly silence, a cracking sound rang out above everyone's heads. A crack as thick as an arm appeared at the top of the pillar of light. The 5 spheres beneath their feet dimmed at an alarming rate. The 5-colored pillar of light also started to shatter. It's over. Yu Chan's expression turned pale, her eyes filled with despair. Other than Yang Yidao, who had a space ring that could store some items that contained true qi, how could anyone else have them? Yang Yidao's eyes lost focus. His pale face was filled with unwillingness and despair. Gotcha! The 5-colored pillar of light split open once again, and the palm formed by the 5-colored lightning would destroy all of them in an instant. Detestable, they were so close to the door of the great Thunder Palace. But in the end, they still failed. Creak, however, at this moment, the dim 5-colored ball suddenly lit up. It was as if 5 stars had suddenly streaked across the starry sky. Their brilliance dimmed rapidly. But in that instant, the 5-colored pillar of light once again exploded with a brilliant glow, temporarily delaying the palm that was pressing down on them. The 3 of them, who had already prepared themselves for death, were overjoyed. Yang Yidao revealed a surprised expression, activating the dry cloud 5 elemental formation and knocking open the giant metal door. Following the opening of the door, an aura that had been sealed for countless years surged forth. The 300-foot lightning emperor was like an illusion, gradually turning transparent as the aura of time engulfed it. The 5 elemental divine thunder, which had protected the great Thunder Palace for countless years, had completed its mission the moment the sealed door was opened, dissipating into the world. The group of them were overjoyed, having survived a calamity. Yang Yidao's cold face revealed a rare expression of admiration. He looked towards Su Yu and gave him a friendly smile. You did well. The group could not help but look towards Su Yu, only to see that he was holding a pink crystal powder in his hands. At the last moment, Su Yu had taken the vital energy crystal from the Eternal Stone King armor, using the remaining vital energy within to activate the dry cloud 5 elemental formation, and had barely barged in. I did this for myself. Su Yu threw away the powder, but he was not happy. Without the vital energy crystal, the defense of the Eternal Stone King armor had weakened by more than 30%. Don't worry, I will not let your sacrifice be in vain. You can have 20% of the items in the Great Thunder Palace. 20% was already a lot. It was obvious that Yang Yidao would monopolize most of the treasures in the Great Thunder Palace. He would not give much to Su Yu and the rest. Giving Su Yu 20% was not a small amount. It's decided, Yang Yidao said. Let's go in. But let me make this clear. Without my permission, no one is to steal anything. I will be the one to distribute everything. He had sacrificed the most, and his abilities were the strongest. Hence, he had the right to say such words. The group of people entered, only to find that it was a very spacious hall. On both sides of the hall were neatly arranged stone chairs. They were arranged in the deepest part of the hall, like stars surrounding the moon. There was a platform that was 10 feet tall. On the platform was a golden dragon throne carved in the shape of a dragon, emitting a strong spiritual pressure. Unfortunately, after so many years, the dragon throne had already rotted. As the giant door opened, the aura of the outside world flowed in, and the dragon throne turned into dust. The neatly arranged stone chairs on both sides also vaporized, leaving behind a pile of gray dust. The perfectly preserved Great Thunder Palace was deteriorating and rotting at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, it was like the other great palaces, filled with the marks of time. Suddenly, Yang Yidao flew to the top of the platform. With a wave of his big sleeves, the dust on the dragon throne was blown away, revealing a piece of wood the length of an index finger. It was surrounded by 5-colored lightning. Even though it was weak, it was the 5 elemental divine thunder that they had encountered previously. Chapter 474. A lightning-based spirit artifact? Everyone was shocked. Yu Chan's breathing became rapid. Could the 5 elemental divine would be a lightning-based material for crafting spirit artifacts? A crafting uncle had offered a reward in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands for 20 years, but no one had found it. Senior, you have done a great service for the faction. The value of this item is much higher than the Thunder Herb. The unexpected reward made the people of the returning Principal Palace ecstatic. Hearing about the Thunder Herb, Su Yu and his group began to search for it secretly. Suddenly, everyone realized that there was a water jar at the left and right corners of the Great Hall. Yang Yidao's expression turned serious, and he shouted, "Don't move!" As he spoke, he quickly flew toward the water jar on the right. The water jar had been dried up for an unknown period of time. All that was left was cracked soil, and there were no spirit herbs. Yang Yidao's expression changed, and he flew toward the water jar on the left. Within the water jar, there was a shallow layer of water that kept the soil moist. In the middle of the soil, there were 3 plants with 5 colors, 1 tall and 2 short. They were very similar to the wild grasses by the roadside, but they were all 5 colors, and they contained an extraordinary lightning energy. Thunder Herb. 2 seedlings, 1 mature. Yu Chan was extremely surprised. We can really find the legendary Thunder Herb. Yang Yidao was happy at first, but his expression turned grave. There is only 1 mature plant? This is a far cry from the 9 that we need. Yu Chan smiled sweetly and said, Master once said that the possibility of finding all 9 of them is very slim. If we can find a mature one, we can also help senior brother fuse it into an armor. Although it will be the next best thing, and won't be as effective as the armor weaved from the Thunder Herb, it will still be very amazing. Coupled with the dry cloud 5 elemental formation, Senior has a high chance of blocking the heavenly disaster. Hearing her words of consolation, Yang Yidao's expression relaxed. We can only make do. As he spoke, he used the jade shovel to store the 3 Thunder Herbs, after which, he searched the Great Hall. After confirming that there were no more valuable treasures, he said, You guys can split the rest. Gang Daliai's expression turned serious, and he quickly rushed to the 2 water jars. His expression was a little ugly. Originally, there was only 1 mature seed and 2 seedlings. Now, both of them had been plundered by Yang Yidao. As for Su Yu, he muttered to himself irresolutely for some time. After thinking for some time, under Gang Daliai's surprised gaze, he moved the 2 water vats together. Then, he poured out all the soil in the 2 jars. Brother Black Snow, what are you doing? Gang Daliai was extremely confused. However, his expression suddenly changed. In the moist soil, there was actually a Thunder Herb seedling that had yet to break through the soil. Swish, a gust of wind blew over. It was Yang Yidao, who had been paying attention to their movements in the dark. When he discovered that something was amiss, he quickly rushed over. When he realized that it was a seedling of the Thunder Herb, his eyes lit up, and he was about to pick it up. However, Su Yu said, You said that you would give me 20% of your harvest as compensation. I am in urgent need of the Thunder Herb. Why don't you let me have this seedling? Hearing this, Yang Yidao rejected without hesitation. The Thunder Herb is very useful to me. You can take 20% of the other things, but not the Thunder Herb. As he spoke, he forcefully took away the Thunder Herb that they had discovered. Seeing this, Su Yu and the rest of the group were furious. However, due to Yang Yidao's power, they did not dare say anything. Yu Chan suddenly realized that within the soil that was poured out, there were a few granules that were the size of rat feces. These are the seeds of the Thunder Herb. Yu Chan recognized them. She was initially delighted, but her eyes quickly dimmed. Yang Yidao was also shocked, but he immediately lost interest. You can take these seeds of the Thunder Herb as you wish. Gang Daliai secretly clenched his fists, his expression unpleasant as he said to Su Yu, The seeds of the Thunder Herb are very common. They are not difficult to find in Jiuzhou and they are not expensive. That is because, apart from special environments like the Thunder Emperor Mountain, the outside world is unable to grow them. At least until now, there has been no experience of growing the Thunder Herb successfully. The Thunder Herbs that have been discovered have all grown in the wild under special circumstances. These seeds are as good as none. No one had been able to grow them? Su Yu's gaze turned slightly. After thinking for some time, he silently dug out the seeds from within the soil. There were a total of 10 seeds, and he carefully placed them into a jade box to preserve them. Following which, the group searched the Thunder Palace, but there were not many valuable items. After confirming that they had been searched once, Yang Yidao completely lost interest, looking deeply at Su Yu and the other two. If that is the case, we will go our separate ways. Take care of yourselves. Yu-chan, let's go. Hearing this, Yu-chan cupped her fists at them, then left. In the end, Su Yu and the other two were left. Brother Dalei, what should we do if we did not complete the mission? Su Yu said gravely. Qin Zhiyang was also a little apologetic. I am indebted to Elder Jiu's kindness, but I am unable to help him. Hearing this, Gang Dalei sighed helplessly. I do not blame you. The geniuses of Jiuzhou are stronger than we expected, and we are helpless. But Master also thought of this, so he asked me to go to another place to search. There is no danger there, and I can go alone. Before that, I need all of you to use your abilities. That way, our agreement will be fulfilled. Su Yu raised his brows. His agreement with the sloppy old man was to help find the Thunder Herb, as Su Yu had something that only he could do. It was a pity that Yang Yidao had appeared, causing Su Yu to be unable to help. Whoosh, Gang Dalei took out a pure white jade plate from his robes, its surface covered with complicated patterns. Brother Black Snow, Master said that you have an ability to see through the essence of matter. Please use that ability on this jade plate once. Su Yu was shocked. His soul eyes had already been seen through by the sloppy old man? Although he did not understand, Su Yu still used his soul eyes on the pure white jade plate once. Brother Zhiyang, please use your curse technique on the jade plate once. Qin Zhiyang did not understand, but he still did as he was told. After he was done, Gang Dalei kept the round plate, cupped his fists, and said, Brothers, I need to carry out Master's mission. I will bid you farewell here. I hope that the two of you will take care of yourselves. Su Yu and Qin Zhiyang had completed their agreement, and it was time for them to leave, to search for their own opportunities. Alright, goodbye, Brother Dalei. The three of them stood in the sky above the Thunder Emperor Mountain, cupped their fists, and bade farewell to each other, flying in 3 different directions. An hour later, a piercing sound reverberated through the air. Gang Dalei, who was covered in a ball of light, had returned. His face was filled with shame and he sighed softly, I'm sorry, brothers. I had no choice but to lie to you. He returned to the Thunder Emperor Mountain, entered the Great Hall of Thunder, stood on the high platform where the dragon throne was, and took out the pure white round plate. After dripping a drop of blood into it, Gang Dalei's eyes glowed abruptly. In his eyes, everything around him could be seen through. Brother Black Snow's transparent eyes are indeed extraordinary. No wonder Master said that it is unique in the Zhenlong continent, and it is truly a divine artifact. After replicating its ability on the round plate, I can also borrow it once, and it can last for a joss stick's time. His eyeballs swept the surroundings, and finally stopped at the high platform beneath his feet. Under the transparent eyes, there was a secret tunnel that was hidden very deeply. Exerting force under his feet, he shattered the high platform and revealed a dark hole. Gang Dalei had a delighted expression, and he entered it quickly. After a cup of tea's time, another piercing sound could be heard. It was Su Yu who had returned. He came to the place where he had found the catfish previously and looked down. As expected, the sealed secret room deep underground still existed. Chapter 475. 100 zhang was not considered deep for Su Yu. In the time it takes for half an incense to burn, Su Yu had successfully dug to the top of the secret underground chamber. A multicolored light screen appeared beneath Su Yu's feet like a silkworm cocoon. Through the light barrier, he could clearly see that the sealed secret underground chamber was not very spacious, only 10 square meters in size. There was only a stone bed and a stone table inside. There was no one on the stone bed, but on the stone table was a greenish-yellow jade seal. The jade seal was engraved with a realistic dragon-shaped image, mighty and domineering. Most of the other items on the table had lost their splendor. Only the jade seal was surrounded by a layer of 5-colored lightning that was hard to detect with the naked eye. Hence, it was as bright as ever, with no signs of age. Su Yu's heart was thumping wildly. This was definitely a special treasure. Separated by a barrier, Su Yu was unable to determine the item's grade and value. But based on his intuition, the jade seal could be the most important item in the entire palace. This made his heart pound. Holding his breath, Su Yu realized that there were 9 books on the bracelet. Although they were covered in dust, they had not decayed. Su Yu was also slightly moved. He hurriedly examined the light barrier, realizing that it had a strong defense, blocking out all the pressure from the outside world. If that wasn't the case, just the 300-meter thick ground alone would be enough to crush the secret chamber over countless years. Su Yu thought for a moment, then tried to take out the golden scale dagger to see if he could carve a hole in the barrier. But when the sharp tip of the golden scale dagger struck the surface, it was as if it had struck steel. Sparks flew everywhere, unable to break the barrier. Then, Su Yu tried the 9 yin-yang formation. But it still did not budge the light barrier. This made Su Yu laugh bitterly, as if he had celebrated too early. But this did not mean that Su Yu was helpless. With a thought, Su Yu sat down cross-legged, his hands forming seals. A transparent shadow appeared above his head. It was Su Yu's soul, which suddenly left his body. His soul had left his body. If this light barrier could block the physical world, how powerful would it be on the soul world? After thinking for a moment, Su Yu's soul body's feet sank downwards. It was as if there was no one around, and he easily entered the light screen, entering the secret room without any obstruction. This made Su Yu happy. It was actually so easy. Without saying another word, Su Yu immediately went to the front of the stone table. As he stared at the jade seal, he tried to grab it with his palm. However, Su Yu's soul body almost passed through the jade seal, and he was unable to touch it. Su Yu blushed with shame. He still had a long way to go if he wanted to achieve what Yunyazi had done, using a soul body to unleash physical attack. If that was the case, he could only lament his inadequacy. He was in the treasury, but he had to return empty-handed? With unwillingness, Su Yu examined the 9 books. They were casually placed on the table. Although they were all sealed, the soul eye was able to see through their contents without any obstruction. Oh? They are all comprehensions of the lightning Tao. Su Yu was slightly surprised. He had thought that it might be a cultivation technique left behind by the Thunder Emperor, but in reality, it was a few rounds of comprehension. It was very likely that it was the comprehension of the Thunder Emperor himself. After thinking for a while, Su Yu started to read the book attentively. At first, he did not care. However, as he read deeper, Su Yu became more and more shocked, and more ecstatic. Of these 9 books, the first one was an explanation of the Lightning Tao, the second was an introduction to the Lightning Tao, the third had the cultivation experience of the Lightning Monarch, the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th books, a total of 3 books, were all about the Lightning Tao god art that the Lightning Monarch cultivated. This was almost equivalent to a legacy. How could Su Yu not be excited? The 8th book was an introduction to the materials of the Lightning Tao. There were elixirs, materials for crafting artifacts, and many other supplementary materials. There was a wide variety of materials, almost covering the knowledge of the materials of the Jojo continent. Su Yu finished reading patiently and finally read the last book. This book was an introduction to the item that Su Yu was most interested in, the Jade Seal. This Jade Seal is a beginner's creation. It is still 3 stages away from the real 5-elemental Strong Thunder Seal. At the moment, it is only a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. If the treasure is completely refined, it might surpass a spiritual artifact. It will become a fairy artifact recorded in the ancient books to shock Jojo. Fairy artifact? Su Yu was shocked. What level was a fairy artifact? What shocked Su Yu even more was that this Jade Seal was only a beginner's creation. If he wanted to succeed, he still had to go through 3 more stages. From what Su Yu knew, the first stage of crafting treasures referred to the fusion of various materials. Could this treasure, which was comparable to a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact, only be the fusion of materials? If just the fusion of the materials had such frightening power, wouldn't it be exceptionally frightening if the crafting was successful? Su Yu gasped. Even the Eternal Stone King armor, a high-grade spiritual artifact, was not as shocking as this. He realized that the value of this item was far beyond his imagination. Su Yu's breathing was rapid. He had to get his hands on this item, but he could not break the protective barrier. How could he bring this item away? Thump! At this moment, a rumble could be heard from the surroundings of the secret chamber. At the side of the light screen, the shadow of a door could be faintly seen. That was the door to the secret chamber. At this moment, someone was breaking open the door from the outside. A crack had already opened. Looking through the crack, Su Yu could not help but be shocked. Gang Dalei. In an instant, Su Yu understood that finding the Thunder Herb was only one of the reasons. Finding the legacy of the Thunder Emperor was the sloppy old man's ultimate goal. Su Yu was secretly anxious. If Gang Dalei were to enter, the prototype fairy artifact would be taken away by Gang Dalei. But at this moment, Su Yu's mind suddenly heated up. A majestic voice reverberated in the depths of his mind like thunder. Congratulations on reading all 9 of my books and inheriting my legacy. Su Yu was stunned. There was still a shred of the Thunder Emperor's remnant consciousness in this place? This prototype fairy artifact will be given to you as part of the legacy. I hope that the future generations can fulfill my dying wish and continue crafting it. After saying this, a puffing sound came from his mind. An unfamiliar incantation had appeared. That incantation was a seal used to control the 5-elemental Strong Thunder Seal. Thump, thump, the door to the secret chamber once again let out a banging sound. Without further ado, Su Yu hurriedly recited the incantation. At that moment, Su Yu felt a faint connection between himself and the 5-elemental Strong Thunder Seal. With a thought, the surface of the Jade Seal crackled and floated in the air. Su Yu was overjoyed. Under his secret control, the Jade Seal quickly flew toward Su Yu's physical body. What made Su Yu even more surprised was that the light screen could not stop the Jade Seal. It passed through the light screen and successfully appeared in front of Su Yu's physical body. This made Su Yu extremely excited. His soul body also left and returned to his physical body. As soon as Su Yu opened his eyes, the cosmos mirror in his bosom flickered with a dim light, and he was about to store the treasure in it. But surprisingly, the item did not budge, as if it could not be stored within the cosmos mirror. Thinking for a moment, Su Yu had a thought. The mark of the 9 jade spiritual pearl on his arm flashed. The prototype fairy artifact was then stored within the 9 jade spiritual pearl with a flash of lightning. Only then did Su Yu relax. Thump! With a loud noise, the door to the secret chamber finally opened. Chapter 476. These thunderbolts had been used by Gang Dalei during his life and death battle with the Ghost Prison Envoy. However, he had not used them since, and they were extremely mysterious. To think that it was a lightning-based treasure. At this moment, Gang Dalei's body was charred black, his clothes torn and tattered. He had a pathetic expression, as if he had suffered a lot. It seemed that the door to the secret room was not so easy to open. Gang Dalei barged in, surprised. His eyes immediately noticed the 9 books on the stone table. Without hesitation, he pounced on them. But just as his hand touched the 9 books, they turned into dust at a speed visible to the naked eye. He did not even get to see a single word. It seemed that these books could only be read once. After that, they would disappear if someone else touched them. Seeing this scene, Suyu could not help but rejoice. Luckily, he had read these books in advance and obtained the legacy of the Thunder Emperor. Gang Dalei froze, his eyes staring blankly. He then flipped the secret room up and down, searching almost every possible place. But he found nothing. His expression turned ugly. What is going on? Did I come to the wrong place? Is this not the place where the legacy of the Thunder Emperor is? His heart was filled with doubt. Standing under the light barrier, it was as if he could not see the environment outside of the light barrier. Hence, he did not notice Suyu's presence. On the other hand, Suyu could clearly observe his every move. In his heart, Suyu was somewhat disappointed. The feeling of being deceived was not a good one. Perhaps Gang Dalei had no choice. After all, the prototype fairy artifact was shocking and could not be leaked. Moreover, there was only one legacy. Withdrawing his gaze, Suyu turned and prepared to leave. But at this moment, Suyu's expression suddenly changed. He saw another figure appear at the door of the secret room. It was Yang Yidao, who had a faint smile on his face. Gang Dalei turned his head to look, and his expression changed. His expression became extremely ugly. You followed me. Yang Yidao stood at the door, completely blocking Gang Dalei in the secret room. He laughed coldly. I knew it would not be so simple. To think that you already knew of the existence of another secret room. Tell me, what is this secret room? Yang Yidao narrowed his eyes as he observed the surroundings. Gang Dalei's face was filled with fear. He struggled for a moment, then sighed. It is the legacy of the Thunder Emperor. Yang Yidao's face suddenly froze as he cried out involuntarily, What did you say? As he spoke, Gang Dalei took out a yellowish ancient letter. On it was recorded that within the Great Thunder Hall, there was a mysterious passageway that led to the Thunder Emperor's inheritance. After looking, Yang Yidao came to a sudden realization. I was wondering why there was nothing in the Great Thunder Hall. So there's another universe. Immediately after, his cold gaze suddenly shot towards Gang Dalei. Hand it over. Gang Dalei laughed bitterly. What you saw is what I saw. I don't know who beat me to it. Humph. This is the first time the Great Thunder Hall has been opened. Apart from you, there is no one else who knows about this place. Since you are unwilling to hand it over, I will come and get it myself. Yang Yidao's aura was piercingly cold, and he suddenly attacked. Gang Dalei wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Not only did he not obtain the inheritance, but he was also forced to die in a corner. You're going too far. Gang Dalei's grief turned into anger. Even he felt wronged. The light and shadow around him vanished, revealing his true form. Yang Yidao was shocked. An alien race's flood dragon? No wonder I felt an inhuman aura from your body. So you are a flood dragon. His eyes glowed with an excited glow. Looks like I have gained something again. It is rumored that flood dragons have a weak bloodline of the real dragon. Based on your blood essence, you might be able to sense the location of the real dragon. If I can obtain the remains of the real dragon, my gains would not be any weaker than the inheritance of the Thunder Emperor. Real dragon? Suyu was secretly shocked. He had already completed the task of helping Gang Dalei find the Thunder Herb. Next, he had to find the few ingredients to heal his eyes. He had already obtained the undead herb of the Netherworld, and he was only missing the blood of the real dragon and the lightning-avoiding silver pearl. With the three combined, he would be able to cultivate a type of evil-destroying silver eyes successfully. He could use it to neutralize the injuries caused by the heavenly wrath, allowing his eyes to recover. If Gang Dalei could really sense the location of the real dragon, wouldn't he be able to obtain the blood of the real dragon? In the secret chamber, Yang Yidao let out a disdainful laugh. I am someone who has tried to make a breakthrough to the fairy realm. Even though I failed, among the half-gods, my abilities are unparalleled. You should just give up on that thought. After his speech, Yang Yidao casually waved his palm toward Gang Dalei's giant body, which was 20 Chinese feet tall. Gang Dalei let out a loud roar. His giant body exploded with a powerful force, and his fists collided. With a whooshing sound, Gang Dalei retreated continuously, after which, he crashed heavily into the light barrier. His face turned red. On the other hand, Yang Yidao's eyes were filled with disdain. Humph, you are only SOSO. After his speech, he took a big step and headed toward Gang Dalei. His eyes glowed with murderous intent. Gang Dalei was in danger. There was no other way to escape. How could he leave? However, at that moment, Gang Dalei suddenly took out a pure white jade plate from his robes and crazily injected his blood essence into it. With a cracking sound, the jade plate exploded on the spot. However, Gang Dalei disappeared into thin air because of that. When he reappeared, he was in a valley that was far away from the Great Thunder Palace. His expression was pale, as if he had just survived a disaster. Luckily, I had Qin Zhiyang's curse technique, which allowed me to set up a substitute puppet here in advance. That was how I managed to escape by a hair's breadth. As it turned out, after he had left the Thunder Emperor Mountain, he had specially found a secret place to set up his escape technique. That technique had ensured his life. After which, Gang Dalei let out a bitter smile. I did not manage to find a single item that the old man needed. How am I going to account to him when I return? After muttering to himself for a moment, Gang Dalei sighed. Looks like I can only place my hopes on the last exchange meet. If I am lucky, I might be able to exchange for the Thunder Herb from someone else. However, the price I have to pay will be huge. I have to take a risk and barge into that place. After his speech, his figure disappeared quickly. In the secret room, Yang Yidao was holding a scarecrow in each hand. His expression was sinister. Curse technique. Humph. To think that you managed to escape. With a furious grunt, he left immediately, quickly searching for Gang Dalei. Suyu, who had witnessed everything, decided to stay behind for safety reasons. He wanted to wait for Yang Yidao to leave. A half-god who had failed to make a breakthrough to the fairy realm. That kind of ability was probably below that of the fairy realm. It was not wise to go out and fight him head-on. After thinking for some time, Suyu took out a jade box. Within the box were the seeds of the Thunder Herb. A total of 10 seeds. In the outside world, it was almost impossible for the seeds to survive. However, in Suyu's hands, that might not be the case. With a shred of anticipation, Suyu's soul entered the garden of the 9 jade spiritual pearl. With a thought, the weeds in the garden were swept away, revealing a piece of golden soil. This was the supreme growing soil, which was extremely rare in the outside world. According to what the fox had said, the supreme growing soil was an earth-based treasure. Any kind of plant could be grown on it,